I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the Chelmsford Public Schools website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting has notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made a part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. Are there any members of the press? Nope, I don't see anybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting, everybody. Our first order of business is to approve the meetings from January 16th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on January 16th, 2024.
Second.
All right, is there any questions or corrections?
No.
No, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0 in favor, thank you. Next up is our Chelmsford High School representatives. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, everyone. So last Friday, the Lion Club, our school's leadership and community service club, hosted In Tune, a musical showcase at the high school's Performing Arts Center. All proceeds from the event went to the Home for Little Wanderers, a charity dedicated to building stable lives and hopeful futures to the disadvantaged children. Also, this past weekend on Sunday, the junior class hosted a craft fair with over 120 local crafters at the high school, with goods such as jewelry, woodwork, lotions, crochet work, and books being sold. This event was a huge success, helping raise money for the class of 2025, my class, while also being a great event for the rest of the community to take part in. And this Saturday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the high school's cafeteria, the Chelmsford High School Asian Student Organization will be hosting their Lunar New Year celebration, the Year of the Dragon. There will be entertainment including henna and karaoke, and also a great variety of cultural food. Cultural clothing or the colors yellow and red will be worn, and those attending will receive lucky red envelopes at the door.
Great, thank you.
So scholarships are now available for seniors through the CHS homepage, and the scholarship list will continuously be updated. Choral Fest is the annual singing tradition for grades 4 to 12 students at Chelmsford Public Schools and is scheduled for Saturday, February 10th at 2 p.m. in the PAC at Chelmsford High School. And admission is free and open to the public. Course scheduling and placement for CHS students has begun, and they will begin planning their classes for next year's schedule. And this Thursday, February 8th, is a half day for all students.
Great, thank you both very much. All right, any good news?
Yes, I have some good news. So last week, our international teachers arrived. There are 22 international teachers with our partnership with UMass Lowell. 3 of them are placed at Chelmsford High School. The rest are placed in area schools. Today, we were able to go over to the university to see their poster projects. This is where they share out, they're dressed in their clothing that they wear in their home country. We learned about their country, what they eat, the type of industry they may have. So you get to go around to meet all of them. So even though we only have 3, I was able to meet all 22 today. In fact, I have my little friendship bracelet from Columbia today, because there's lots of, they bring a lot of neat things with them as they put their poster projects together. So they'll be with us until the end of February. They will be at the next school committee meeting as part of their viewing of a government committee. So they will be, all 22 will be here, and you can ask them questions. This is a yearly event, and we're excited to have them here.
Great, thank you so much. All right, do we have anybody here for public comment? Anybody register?
We didn't, no.
Okay, and we'll move on to new business.
Jumping right in. Yeah, we actually have a busy agenda this evening. The first item up is a spotlight on the schools. So the first meeting of each month, and this being the first meeting in February, we're going to spotlight South Row Elementary School this month. We get to hear a little bit about some of the work that they're doing, both on student engagement and some of the academics in support of our strategic plan. So we have South Row Principal Terry Gilbert and Assistant Principal Jason Romalo here tonight. They're going to be assisted by Linda Hirsch with the presentation. They have some little snippets of video. We're going to hope it goes well. And we're going to hear a little bit about South Row. So I will turn it over to Terry and Jason. Welcome. and looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. It's always difficult to kind of choose something to highlight. We're really proud of all the different work and the people that we work with at South Row. But we have a robust student council at South Row. It has grown exponentially in the last few years. Jason really had a solid foundation when I started there. But it has grown, and we've tried very hard to make it a worthwhile and productive experience for the students. So you're mostly going to hear from them because it's a lot of video clips of them talking about their experience in student council. So we just have some pictures of the students. I don't even think that's all of them on the stage in the cafeteria. I think a lot of them are off places, but we have about 50 students participating at this point.
And one of the biggest, the backbone, I would say, to our student council is really developing young leaders. We feel it's important at a young age to really develop leadership skills, teach students about what it means to be a leader, about the challenges about being a leader, in hopes that they, of course, will give back to our community, but also beyond as they continue throughout the Chelmsford Public Schools. So in each one of our meetings, we really try to highlight leadership and provide them opportunities to learn about what being a leader is, but also apply their skills. And they have the opportunity to share how we can make our school and our community a better place.
So just some statistics from our program. As I said, we have about 50 students. We have 4 fourth grade classrooms, and there are students from all 4 classrooms that participate. We do go through an application process. I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. We have been very fortunate. Up until this year, it's been Jason and I running it, and it's been tricky with the 50 students and just the 2 of us to, again, make it a worthwhile experience for them. So it's not just the once a month meetings, it's what are we doing with them in between, how are we providing opportunities. So we have been very lucky. We have 4 teachers that have volunteered to help us out in a variety of capacities this year. Jamie Weber, a 2nd grade teacher, Shannon Simmons, a 4th grade teacher, Beth Matthews, a 4th grade teacher, and Lisa Tice, a 4th grade teacher, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. One of the things that the students do is they think up different kinds of spirit days. They kind of brainstorm, and we work together, and then they vote on them. We talk about the feasibility of some of their ideas, and we have a spirit day. We have a variety of spirit days every month, but we have a special spirit day every month. It'll be Red, White, and Pink Day this month. We have a dress as your favorite book character day. So the student council each year has a couple of those days that they get to actually decide. So that's one of the really fun things, and then they help advertise and everything. We also have at least six jobs that they can choose from, and most of them do more than one job over the course of the year. And this year we also have, as part of this school newspaper, and we're waiting for our first edition on that.
Yeah, I know I talked a little bit about the leadership piece, but each meeting always starts off with some form of a leadership quote that we talk about, some type of short story or short video clip. This week we did one on kids in leadership, right? So they got to see different videos of kids doing things that exhibit leadership. We have a dialogue at our meetings about their jobs, their responsibilities, how things are going, what are some challenges that they might be facing, again, trying to tie into that leadership component. We provide them opportunities to give us feedback and provide input on activities in the building, initiatives, or just their voice, which I think is important. Recently, which we'll get into a little bit later, we've added additional subcommittees for our meetings. And like Mrs. Gilbert said, having many teachers that are willing to be involved provides students more opportunities to do different things. So we'll talk about that in a bit.
So part of the whole student council process is they have to fill out an application. Really, any student who is willing and wants to commit to it, we allow in. It's not as if they don't write the right answer, they're not getting in or whatever, but we just feel like that is an important component because that's how life works, right? You want to be a part of something, you have to demonstrate your commitment to it. So there's just a series of short questions that talks about what does it mean to be a leader and things like that. And we kind of have a compact with them that says here are the meetings, are you going to be able to commit to coming to all of them? And they take it very seriously. And we do review the applications, and then they're all sent you're in kind of thing. So makes them feel really good.
We do read every application out there. So anybody watching at home, we do read every application. This is a little bit from a teacher's perspective. So this is Shannon Semenza, who's a fourth grade teacher that talks about.
Student Council at South Row is a great experience for grade 4 students. We meet monthly to discuss jobs and brainstorm ideas. Different jobs that students have in Student Council is safety patrol, they are kindergarten mentors, they read at grade level meetings, they can be guest readers in previous classrooms, and help facilitate Try It Tuesday. This year, students are creating a South Row newspaper. Student Council is a great experience for our students, and it allows them to collaborate and share their ideas.
So a big thanks to Shannon for sharing a little bit about her perspective.
I bumped into Shannon last night when I was coming in for the PTO meeting, so that was about 6:45. And she was just leaving, saying that she had been there for student council.
She's part of our school, she's part of student council, and then she stayed for school council.
Wow.
So she's doing both of those things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Very invested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully the volume.
yeah. So this is one of our jobs. It's Try It Tuesday. And this started last year. We partnered with Food Services and Katie Sims during Nutrition Month is March. And we kind of just decided we'd do this. We had themes in our student grade level meetings for a series of months all about nutrition, and culminated in Try It Tuesday. And then we did it for the rest of the year, and it was like a huge hit. So we're continuing this year. We only do it once a month, but it is one of the jobs that the student council members can sign up for. And they work with the people down in the cafeteria, and they get all these trays ready for all the different classrooms, and they deliver them to all of the classrooms in the morning for the samplings. So that's one of the jobs.
And Clementines are this month?
Today was it was Clementine's.
Clementine.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bella, and Try It Tuesday is a chance where you can try and experience different foods, fruits and vegetables. Hi, I'm Emily, and Try It Tuesday is different varieties of foods that you can taste and taste test. Hi, I'm Rita, and I just love walking into a classroom and seeing all the smiling faces look up at me. Some of the Try It Tuesday foods we've had in the past are watermelon, and green beans, and much more.
They definitely sold it well, right?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Guest readers is one of our biggest jobs that we have. So essentially, we create like a sign-up sheet amongst our staff, times that are convenient for the teachers, but also on the other end, for teachers throughout the building to select different students to come into their rooms to sign up to read. Each student that wants to participate usually reads at least once, if not twice, throughout the year in a different classroom. And teachers usually love to have kids back that they've had before. So it spreads kind of that continuous community building. They practice and choose their own book. They can utilize our library if they're looking for a particular book that they'd like to read. They keep track of the time. They keep track of the day. They're responsible for checking. We have a Google Classroom that we created, and they take ownership out of where they're going, when they're going, and making sure they're prepared. So Owen's going to share a little bit more about it from the student perspective.
Hello, I'm Owen Potosi, and I was a guest reader for kindergarten. And I read the Bad Case of Stripes to Mrs. Patrick's class. The reason why I chose this job is because I really like reading to other people, and I loved just seeing my old classroom and old teacher. And the reason why I liked it is because I got to see my teacher, my classroom, and again, also read to other children.
Nice.
Go, Owen.
Safety patrol is another job. Jason got all of them these handy dandy safety vests that they get to wear. And they have spots throughout the building, and they'll do it for a month. And so at dismissal time, they go out and they are out there helping to enforce expectations of not running in the hallway. They will help students if they need to find their way, like a new student or kindergartners at the beginning of the year. They also will use our Pride ticket system. They have their own color Pride ticket that they will actually hand out to students that are showing, that are following expectations. So that's like a really good reinforcer too. But so we have quite a few students that rotate through that on a month-to-month basis.
Hi, my name is Joshua, and I do student council. One of my jobs is safety patrol. I make kids I make kids walk and be safe. And if they do all those things, they get a pride ticket. Hi, Allie. One of my jobs is in student council or safety patrol. We get to decorate and make signs for us to hold to convince kids to walk. And I hope my efforts for keeping the school safe works out.
The next opportunity our students have is being grade level meetings hosts, and this is something that actually Mrs. Gilbert started off. We do monthly grade level meetings, but trying to get the students more involved. So students will preview a book connected to the theme that we choose to do. They read during the grade level meetings. They have an opportunity to engage with the grade, ask questions about the text, or even just engage in the meeting itself and help us execute it, making sure students are sitting and listening and all that fun stuff. But they really enjoy reading the story, they practice with each other, and they get to spend some extra time with us throughout this given day once a month, and this job rotates as well.
Hi, I'm Elin Haas. I'm in 4th grade and I'm in Miss Matthews' class. A couple things I can tell you about grade level meeting is that you get your book a couple days early to practice with your friends or whoever you're doing it with. And then the final day you get to read it with every grade, and it's really fun. Hi, I'm Maddie Hansen, and when I do grade level meeting, it's really fun because you get to practice with your friends, and when you read it to all the grades below you, you get to see them smiling when you're reading. Hi, I'm Madison Williams. I'm in Mrs. Matthews' class, and I'm also in 4th grade. Something I love about grade level meetings is that I get to ask questions to all the younger kids and hear their answers.
Kindergarten helpers or kindergarten mentors is another job we have. This rotates also on a monthly basis. Many of them actually go down at dismissal and help students with make sure that their car numbers are up, that they're heading out to the back lot for their cars, or when the bus numbers go up, the different waves, that they know the students, like if somebody's kind of lagging behind, that they're like, okay, you need to get out to your bus on time. They'll help them get their backpacks packed up. The teachers love having them down there during dismissal. We do have a couple that also kind of come help in the morning too. There are some other situations, and they kind of get the students settled, like they might be actually partnered with a particular student to help them get settled into the day. It's really, they're really, I can't say enough about these students. They're like so proactive and independent.
Hi, I am Jeffrey Long. I am in Mrs. Matthews' class for 4th grade, and I am, one of my student council jobs is K1 helpers. I help in a kindergarten class, and I help somebody pack their bag before dismissal, and I put the lunch clips that they use to choose their lunch away so they can choose their lunch tomorrow. I hope that how I'm helping makes this teacher's afternoon less stressful.
Hi, we are kindergarten helpers. My name is Liana. And my name is Addison. We chose this because kindergartners are really easy to help and they're really cute. That's why I chose it. The reason why I chose it is because I'm the youngest sibling in my family, so I don't get to hang around little kids as much, and I think it's a fun experience to hang out with them.
Solid.
My experience was I helped them pack up, and I helped them know when their car number was up or when their bus was up. I would help some kids pack up, and I would put away the lunch count, and I would also play fun games with them on the back.
Very invested in our jobs. Mrs. Matthews, I have to give a lot of credit for our school newspaper, jump-started it this year, and our first edition's coming out soon, but a wide variety of student council members chose to participate in starting a school newspaper. So it's the first time that I can recall being at South Row where this has occurred. This involved the students interviewing teachers, featuring different activities, different events, and Mrs. Matthews and Mrs. Tice worked with the students at various times throughout the day. Specifically, I know this was something where students had been willing to give up a recess time to be able to go in and work on the newspaper work. It's a very invested group, and it's the first newspaper will be printed hopefully soon, so we're looking forward to seeing it. But I went into one session a few weeks ago, and just the engagement and the interest in what they were doing was just unmatched. So they really took it seriously, and they're excited for the product.
My name is Shu Baggerwall.
And my name is Jeffrey Long.
Together we work in
Newspaper! It is a fun learning experience for the fundamentals of writing and being a reporter.
It is a good experience for people who want to work as a team, because you have to work with tons of other children.
This quote reminds me of my role in newspaper.
Be strong. You never know who you are inspiring.
So hi, I'm Adi Banal
And I'm Ben Eudston.
and we're going to be talking about the student council newspaper. The newspaper is a paper that goes around and the student council wrote it, and it gives information about what's happening.
And we're interviewing different grades, specialists, and classes and teachers. And I interviewed the music teacher, and some questions I asked her were like, what are like the things that different grades are learning, and like what's your favorite instrument to play and why?
And I did Missy, the art teacher, and the questions I asked her were like, what subjects they're learning and what the difficulties they're having, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we're trying to publish the newspaper by near the end of February.
Coming out soon.
I think this is our last job, yeah. So bus mentors, this is predominantly where the student council will be buddied up with a kindergartner or first grader. It could be for a variety of reasons. It might be because the student is nervous about riding the bus, or maybe they're still trying to learn what the bus expectations are. So we have a number of students that have volunteered to be bus mentors, and these two students did it for a little over a month back in December.
I am here with two of our fourth grade bus mentors, Nina and Bowden. Nina, can you tell me a little bit about what a bus mentor does?
So one of the things you can do with them is that you can have some plays with them, and then you guys can be really good friends with them days.
Bowden, what do you like about being a bus mentor?
You get to share funny things with him and be friends, and you can also tell them what's your favorite thing to do, and also cheer them up if they're sad or mad, and then you can be a little jokester.
Thank you for sharing about being a bus mentor. Do you both enjoy or have enjoyed your job helping students at South Row on the bus?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks so much. So those are our jobs that we currently have up and running, but what's kind of coming up next for the group is they'll continue with their monthly jobs on rotations. They'll continue to communicate school-wide events, spirit days, and kind acts. They're going to help organize our annual Fitness for Cure event that supports St. Jude's coming up in May. And at our meetings, we're splitting up into 4 subgroups for the remainder of the year. There's going to be 4 different groups. One is our kindness group. So this group will be responsible for creating kindness precepts, making kindness videos, supporting us with the Great Kindness Challenge for future years. We've talked a little bit about being a leader, how sometimes you don't necessarily get the benefits in the actual year, but you're going to be able to give back for the future. So supporting us for future kindness weeks or kindness events. We have a school-wide passport, which I know we've shared about in the past, which is our expectations of respect and responsibility and safety. So this group hopes to update our passport with some more current pictures of students exhibiting the right behaviors, potentially doing videos of expectations that are featured by the students rather than staff. So they're excited about that. A student council information group, so partnering and going out to 3rd grade rooms and sharing about student council, potentially helping us with some of the outreach pieces and how we can make student council better for the future. And lastly, the Welcome to South Row group. We have a lot of tours coming up as we're getting ready for the new year, crazy to say. So we're hoping to have some of our students help us with these tours, whether actually live in person, being at kindergarten orientation, being able to welcome new students that are new to the school that have come in and being able to give them live tours. So creating some scripts and things along those lines to welcome new families and new students to South Row. So that's what's coming up.
These are the future leaders that would be sitting at this table.
Absolutely.
I know they will be.
Absolutely.
Can they run this year?
Right.
Does anybody have questions?
Thank you. Yes, does anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to say the South Row parents and kids are so proud all the time, and you can kind of see, you could see it in there, and you could see it in their faces. And I really appreciate you trying to help them see leadership and actually be able to talk about it in a really interesting adult but kid kind of way. It's good. So I just thank you for the work and for the work you do with the kids, children.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that all of our elementary schools do an outstanding job, but South Row holds a very special place in my heart because both of my own kids went through South Row, and I've been the liaison to the South Row PTO for several years now, and I get to see firsthand the really hard work of, I was about to call you Dr. Romalo, almost, right?
Someday, maybe.
And Ms. Gilbert, plus our PTO, and it really is just a terrific community. That is in large part due to both of your efforts and your staff, to create a culture where, kids want to do these kinds of things and are really invested, in things just beyond what happens in their own classrooms. So you've done a great job there, so thank you so much.
Just to add to that, I think it was wonderful to see the teachers' involvement and that they want to do this. So that is terrific. The other thing is the concept of leadership and what you've done with the council, because this is going way beyond what the councils were doing in the elementary level. Councils are a fairly new concept in the sense it's been around less than 10 years at least in the elementary level. But it's great to see this, because this is exactly what we're trying to do then as they move into the middle schools and eventually at high school, they have more freedom in being involved in this way. So this is terrific.
Yeah.
And it's at every level except K, right? So it's, your students for the council can be grade 1 through 4? Only fourth grade.
But they help out like across the.
So it's 50 students from fourth grade. That's amazing.
It's more than half the grade.
Because you have a total of how many fourth graders?
60, I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Yeah, close to
90,
100, yeah,
yeah, 100, yeah.
That's phenomenal.
It's a huge amount of participation.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you highlighting the teachers as well. This shows their investment into this group and just the mission behind it, right? They're volunteering their time to do this, which I think shows their commitment and their investment to the work.
Absolutely.
Thanks for highlighting that.
Yes, absolutely.
I really appreciate that the kids have really worthwhile jobs in the school. It's not just plain spirit days, which is
Yeah.
you hear about in the past, but really worthwhile jobs. I used to teach kindergarten, and having helpers at the end of the day, wow, that's great. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, Terry and Jason, thank you very much for sharing tonight. Okay, moving on to item number 2 this evening. In your packet is an MSBA vote. So we talked a little bit during the capital planning process for this fall that one of the roof projects, there's a portion of the roof project, a portion of the roof at South Row Elementary School that may qualify just based on the age of the roof for the MSBA's accelerated repair program. So you can apply to the MSBA for one core program at a time. So our core program for like a potential new school, remodel school, is the Parker application. But each year you can apply for, under accelerated repair, roof, spoilers, or window projects. And we determined that it would really make sense to try to apply for this section of the South Row roof to be done. So before you tonight, so this is very similar. It's a scaled-down application that we typically have for a bigger project. You would vote this evening, the select board would vote, I think, next Monday, and then these applications are due by March 1st into DESI. It's a pretty quick turnaround, so we'd apply by March 1st. They would review them sometime late in the spring, and then over the summer, if they ever had to come out and take a look at something, they could. But usually by the fall board meeting, they're approving these projects because they'd like to get them funded and potentially underway summer of '25, or the latest would be summer of '26. So this is certainly worth, you don't know who's going to apply, you don't know like what the scale of need is going to be. But where our roof does hit the age requirement, it's at least worth trying to apply, because if we do get funded, we'd get about half of the project funded by the state, and we would have to then allocate half. So that's before you this evening. There is a lengthy vote that does need to be read into the record. Again, the select board would do a similar vote, and I'd recommend you go ahead this evening and do that. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we know what the project would cost? General ballpark?
I don't for this particular piece off the top of my head. I mean, if I had to give somewhere, I believe between $1 million and $1.5 million, but I could firm that up for you.
But 50% of that would be reimbursed by the state?
Yeah, approximately 50% would be reimbursed.
And this is more tangentially related. I know that there's a new lightning rod going on the roof at South Row.
Yeah, it's
Not a lightning rod.
like a lightning kind of depression type thing, to not have lightning strikes hit the building.
Right.
So that work is underway now.
So will putting on a new roof interfere with that work at all?
No, that's running parallel. I mean, that's going to happen anyway.
Okay.
There had been a couple of different, over the years, ironically, the South Row is a very short school in stature, but it keeps getting hit by lightning. So we did actually work with the state delegation. Town Manager Cohen was instrumental in helping with that, and Christine Clancy from DPW, to get a special kind of grant to take a look at that particular project. So that did get funded. I know the work is underway now with putting specifications together for it, but that's going to happen anyway.
Right.
And I believe they're targeting the summertime for installing that.
Right.
Exactly what happens, I'm not 100% up on. Basically, it's better grounding for the building so that during a lightning storm, the building would be better protected and better grounded.
This actually came up as a question at the PTO meeting last night, but, we're going to do this, then look at a new roof, and then we'll undo the work that we've,
No,
okay,
no, it's going to happen anyway,
Okay.
and it would run parallel.
all right. That was the only question. Anybody else?
This is the one you have to read the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
After you, Mr. Vice
All
Chair.
right. Be it resolved that having convened in an open meeting on February 6, 2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Chelmsford, in accordance with its charter bylaws and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest from form dated February 5th, 2024, for the South Row Elementary School located at 250 Boston Road, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application might be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future for the replacement of school facility systems such as roofs, as certain sections of the roof at South Row Elementary School have exceeded their useful life and require replacement at this time. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any form other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Chelmsford to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
You got the easy part.
I did. I almost blew it, but
Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, this is a roll call vote. Dennis?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
John?
aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0 in favor.
Great. Thank you very much. Next item this evening, number 3, is a little presentation on the MSBA eligibility and feasibility projects for Parker, kind of staying under that tone. If you recall, after we had gotten the invitation for the Parker into the eligibility period, we talked a little bit about potentially making some presentations to different boards that we're on. So if you're at like a PTO, if you're representing that group, or eventually if we have the Finance Committee, because we'll have a kind of a bond authorization for some of this funding. Ultimately, town meeting in April, when we were recommending this particular project, we wanted to have a little presentation that gave some background about this. And so that, if we all can't be in the same place at the same time, but if you have a presentation that you bring and you kind of walk through, I think it'd be helpful for everyone to be on the same page. So I started to put together a number of slides that we can walk through. What I'd ask for tonight is, as I'm kind of running through this, obviously because I'm a little bit more familiar with it, see if any kind of questions jump into mind, see if it's kind of answering the questions that you think people may ask, because I can obviously go back and kind of tweak this if anything comes up, or if you think something's either out of order or out of place. I'm happy to go ahead and modify this and then kind of finalize the presentation that I'll share with you, and you can bring it around to the different places you go, and I'll obviously be doing the same. But this just kind of, I believe, gives some context to why we're at the point where we are looking at a potential school building project and targeting Parker. A lot of this really does have to do with the age of our facilities. So this chart just kind of summarizes for you the 7 different school projects we have, what year that they were built, how old they are. The third column is kind of instrumental, and that is something that really kind of triggered the Parker application for being successful, we believe, obviously also with the elementary schools involved. Because when you are building with the MSBA, they do not take into consideration modular buildings because they're really not permanent structures. So when you look at gross square footage calculations and trying to improve your need for the buildings, obviously those don't come into play. Now, for us, the new buildings that we put on during the summer of 2017 are very, they're solid, they're sound. They're really more modular buildings as opposed to kind of the modular classrooms that we still have at Parker, McCarthy, and there's two of them over at South Row. But I actually thought it was a little bit more recent, but when I was looking at the pictures, it was actually the summer of 2017 that we put those buildings in. And if you kind of take a look at this, obviously the newest building is the high school, which is 50 years old. Center School went through a full renovation back in 1999. That building obviously is in good shape and it's had some upgrades. But other than that, really, there hasn't been a school building project in over 50 years. And some of those ages obviously are kind of getting up into the 50 and even 60-plus years. So I think that's important to kind of just set the context a little bit about some of the age of our facilities. Again, I think the town has done a fantastic job upkeeping them and making sure that they're viable and they still can be used. But we do have to start looking at, 10 kind of years down the line, not only for the buildings themselves, because we're going to need to start investing in some new inventory, but also because of our enrollment issues. So we're going to address enrollment in a few minutes. But just as some way of history, back in 2015, we originally contracted with an architectural engineering firm called Doran Whittier, and they came in to help us put together a master plan for the district to take a look at that long-term initiative, and that's how we came up with the MSBA project, the core project for Parker. They also helped us develop a 10-year capital plan for our schools because the town does fund a significant amount of money each year out of the regular town budget for some smaller items. So obviously, it wouldn't be a brand-new school, but some of our, again, roofs and boilers and enhancements we've done on the buildings, they helped us with that. Their work really took about 2 years that they were working with us. We looked at all different options for the school, whether it be elementary, middle, high school, combination of different buildings. There were 16 options that ultimately were kind of vetted out when we originally decided we were going to apply for the high school project. We tried that for 4 years. We were unsuccessful. Back in 2020, we kind of redeveloped our plan, and that's when we went in for the middle school project. What was critical back at the time as well, and the town meeting supported us, and the town worked very closely with us. The reason we've been able to kind of keep afloat with the buildings that we have is because we did add those 22 extra classrooms at the elementary level. And they were needed not only because we wanted to add full-day kindergarten as an option for our students, but we also had enrollment needs at that particular time. And honestly, thank God we did, because the enrollment is just continuing, as you'll see in the slides ahead, to increase. We had to do something then, and we really have to do something now in the long run to be able to deal with some of these issues. Again, yeah, stop me along the way, too, if you'd like.
Do you remember when we had that public input session at the senior center?
Yep.
And there was, and I can't remember what we called it, but there was 2 things that I was thinking about. One was, the reason it wasn't just the 6 years of applying for a new high school, 4 years, 6 years, okay? But it was also, we were getting some indication from the MSBA that it wasn't going to happen, right? So that was one thing. And then the other is, the middle school was the second most popular, idea for that project. So I just want to, I don't want people to say, well, you didn't think you were going to get high school, so you just decided to go for a middle school. It really wasn't, like that. You know
No,
what I mean?
and again, no, I wholeheartedly agree. We call it the visioning sessions.
Right, that's
And
what it was,
we
yeah.
had them at the Elks, we had them at the senior center, they were long.
Notes and all this stuff.
We had the little post, the little dots to kind of rank
Dots,
your
yeah.
choices and everything. And at that time, and this is, I think, what we kind of lose track of sometimes because you're talking 5, 6 years ago, we definitely needed a new school building project, but it had a trickle-down effect in the district. Because if we had built or gone forward with the high school project, it wasn't to just have the high school have a new project, but it was to be able to basically consolidate our middle schools at that time into the new high school, which would be technically the newest building in town. We would then take one of the 2 middle schools offline and use the other one as a 5th elementary school, because we knew that enrollment increase was coming. We really had to get a 5th school somewhere for an elementary school, and that's why we did it. So we just thought in one project, we'd be able to accomplish the most, which would be a new high school, technically a new middle school for our kids, because they'd be moving into the newest building in town. And then we would have an extra middle school that we could repurpose for a 5th elementary school. We would have had to redistrict at that time, but that's what the space was. And the feedback that we got from the state was that in the scheme of funding, you can only fund so many high schools because they have to spread the money around. You can only have so many high schools, which just by its very nature are the most expensive in any given year. So if they were only going to be recommending 2 or 3 high schools to come forward, and every year it's a clean slate and it's a competition based on your facility need, Chelmsford High School being only 50 years old compared to some of the more urban high schools that have been traditionally being recommended being over 100 years old, we just could not make a compelling argument based on the need of our particular facility. And our facility was very well kept. It was very well updated. We've made investments in the facility to keep it really running. So that also factored into it. And in our conversations with the MSBA, we knew we needed to do something for a school building project. We couldn't just continue to apply for the high school if it just wasn't a viable project. And they actually recommended we look at another option, whether it be an elementary or middle option, just because it's more, we could have a more compelling argument, because the enrollment issue is a significant issue for us. But that also they can fund more elementary and middle school, so we have a better chance of getting something. We then kind of went back to the drawing board and said, all right, if we're not going to advance this high school project, what was kind of our second option? And that's when the middle school option came into play, but also that ties in the elementary schools, which we'll get into, because there's that potential for the grade level realignment. So that's a little couple slides further, but we will get into that too.
And I think the visioning section, because I clearly remember this, I was even on the fence about high school, middle school, and I
Right.
think it was pretty close, you know, based on the people that were there about which way it was going to go, so,
Right.
you know,
No, they were both compelling.
yeah, they were both compelling, and
arguments.
you know, I want people to understand that there was a history going back several years around this discussion around the high school and middle school. Not that you need to include that, but,
Right.
you know, I was just thinking about the dots and about, you know, that whole discussion,
Right.
you know, we had back then.
I think people also expressed at the meeting that they wanted to do a project that was, again, we're not going to be lining up, say, 7 or 8 projects in a row, just because of the feasibility of that. But we wanted to also do a project that was going to benefit everyone in town. So by having it be, say, a high school project, obviously the high school kids would benefit, and then the middle schools would benefit because they'd be together. There was concern because obviously the easiest school to get funded would be an elementary school. But if we were to bring just one elementary school forward and the other 3 didn't really benefit from that, it was going to be just a harder argument as far as getting community support for the ultimate project, because only 25% of the community was going to benefit, and we would almost have to show commitment for, you know, building one elementary school, another, and it was just too long of a trajectory. In the end, I think what we're able to accomplish with this middle school project is going to get us there, and I can talk about that in a couple of slides.
For this particular slide, 2021, we talk about the new projections, and they showed continued growth with approximately 4950 by 25-26. Well, we've reached that number by current. So I think it's important not to only say the projection, but also indicate in there that we've actually reached that number.
That's on a couple of slides
okay,
ahead too,
good.
because we actually have a couple of slides that just look on the enrollment piece.
Okay.
What this was kind of getting at is that we've actually had 2 different enrollment projections done formalized. One was in 2016, and then one was in 2020. And we've engaged with NESDEC to do an updated one now. But the 2016 and even the 2020 underestimated the total enrollment to the district. And our trajectory, what this is saying is actually basically, we're already over what at that time we thought we were going to have in 25, 26, and
Okay.
23, 24. So you'll see that on another slide coming up.
Good.
Everyone good? Okay. So this is just kind of a slide, again, we used at the time with just some updated enrollment numbers for now. And I think it's a good visual to just kind of show you spatially how restricted we are within the buildings. So when the MSBA takes a look at footprints, again, they do not consider modular classrooms, right? So they're assuming that everyone is in the regular building. They're taking a look at gross square footage of the facility, and they have a whole formula that they go through to figure out if a school is over capacity or under capacity. Obviously, in like some of our classrooms at the elementary level are much bigger than you'd actually build in a school these days. So they're not accounting for, say, having more kids in a school classroom than you might under their particular model. But my big takeaway from this particular slide is you can see right across the top that we have an enrollment issue at the elementary level. And Parker is also, even at the middle school level at the time, and that's only grades 5 and 6, that red block is over capacity. The two schools that we technically have some capacity at are McCarthy and the high school. And again, when we were doing our application with the MSBA and we were putting forward this data on the high school, it was also hard for them because they're just looking at it as being a high school project, trying to figure out why we'd be trying to make an argument for enrollment increases when it really didn't impact the high school. You had to go a layer deeper to figure that, if we were to do this high school, technically you'd be moving your middle schools, and then you'd be reapportioning or reallocating your fifth elementary school, and that's why the enrollment issue was necessary for the town, but it also just didn't help us make the compelling argument for the high school. But I think on this particular page, you can clearly see that, the square footage, the gross square footage calculations that the MSBA uses indicate that our 4 elementary schools are over capacity as it is, and, Parker as well.
I like it because the color, right? And it's easy
Yeah,
to explain.
yeah, you're gonna see some, red is bad, green is good, and yellow is kind of cautionary.
On this
So
slide,
this is a good one.
for the high school,
Yep.
I always wondered, what about the offices? So let's say that capacity would be if those rooms were made available for teaching?
So in the first formula that the MSBA uses, they're using gross square footage of the entire space. So they're just taking, but they do this to every high school. They're not just singling out, say, Chelmsford High School. You can then get into individual, like, classroom square footages, but based on MSBA standard, they're saying a building that size, technically would have capacity for 1,785 students.
Okay, but we currently use some of that space for offices and so on, administrators
But when,
and teachers and so on.
correct, but this is just more of a benchmark against other communities, because when the MSBA is trying to apply their formulas, what they don't know if Chelmsford High is using 2 office spaces for offices or, 2 for classrooms. They don't know compared to Billerica or Tewksbury or whatnot. They have to have some way of just kind of measuring based on the gross square footage, bless you, of a facility, how many kids could potentially be educated there. So you don't kind of hold this to the exact number of kids that we have. This is just their way of kind of comparing and saying, overall, we feel the building is either over capacity or under capacity.
Yeah, because what I always thought is, okay, what if we were to not have those administrative offices there and so on? We'd have to find space for those folks. So it
Right.
would need an additional building as well.
But
It's not even practical, because some of them are administrators who students need to have access to. Like the house offices, so you can't really put them
Right.
out of the building.
So this is what I mean. It doesn't really reflect what's available for classroom sizes and so on, for classes.
yeah, but don't be thinking and trying to tying it right down to Chelmsford High. This is just the state's way of kind of looking at all high schools and kind of figuring out a metric to use. And the way they do that is basically by just gross square footage of the space. When you get into the feasibility study and the schematic design, that's when you'll get deeper into how you're using spaces, what do you need for spaces? That's more like Chelmsford specific. But they just need some type of a measure to kind of figure out statewide if a school is either over capacity or under capacity. So this is, again, I think this is a good graphic just because you're seeing the red, green, yellows.
No, it is.
And on this, next couple of slides, this is just that same data from the slide number-wise when we take a look at our enrollments from this past fall. Again, the second column with the red, say if you look at Byam 530, according to the gross square footage, they're saying you should have about 346 kids in that space. they're saying, based on classroom counts, without the modulars being included, they see a capacity for 412. So when the state is looking at this, they're not including modular classrooms. They're saying Byham technically should have about 412 kids in that particular facility based on the classrooms that it has. However, for our purposes, because we've added 6 classrooms to that particular building, that last column is for us. Again, MSBA is not considering this, but because we have those 6 classrooms, our technical capacity at Byham is like 527. We've got 530 there now, so we're basically like at our max. We don't have room to add another 50 or 100 kids over there, but, we're pretty much on target. Center is slightly over, and part of the reason that center is over is because when we did the modular buildings, that's the one elementary school where the classrooms are attached to the building. Because they had a fire suppression system, we could attach them, the other buildings we couldn't. However, the footprint of center school only allowed us to have 4 classrooms. There wasn't enough space to do 6. So when you put this metric together, you're dividing by 4 classrooms additionally instead of 6. Harrington, again, has a little bit of capacity, and South Row is kind of right on target with the numbers. Similarly, following the same train of thought at,
Can you just go back?
oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's okay. Is the orange mean something different than the yellow?
Yes, so when you switch to the 5th column, and even the last column I didn't really mention, that is really just more around the facility condition themselves. There were all of those facility reports that took a look at like the building mechanicals and the electrical and the roof and whatnot. So all those different kind of variations of color tied out to the plan on just the
Right.
condition of the facility.
Right.
So the kind of darker you go, the more needy it was.
Okay.
The lighter it was, the better.
The last one is showing room size. Is that the size of the rooms or? How many rooms?
Yes, so-
Standard sizes?
Yeah, it's the square footage of the actual classroom, excuse me, compared to MSBA standards. Just showing again, yellow is kind of right-sized, red would be oversized.
Right, so South Row is showing South Row classrooms.
South
are
Row's
on
classrooms
the
happen to be small.
side, Yeah.
They're smaller than some of the classrooms in the other buildings. Harrington and Byham's classrooms are actually probably the bigger classrooms we have. In my opinion, Center and South Row are just a little bit tighter. Okay?
Thank you.
The same train of thought just kind of continues over to McCarthy Park and the high school. Again, this is where you'll see, without the modular classrooms, Parker is really oversized. When you add the modular classrooms, now these modular classrooms at Parker and McCarthy are not the 2017 version. Those are more your typical like modular classrooms. Those go back to 2003. So those are, significantly older, 20-plus years. They've exceeded their useful life. We're keeping them together, we're still maintaining them to keep them useful, but they have a lifespan that's basically been reached.
So actually, one of the things we talked about, and I think it was you that said it, we have a significant amount of capital costs that actually, outside of the fact that those are probably not gonna be replaceable, right? We're not gonna be able to do another set of, we don't wanna do another set of modulars, right?
Right.
And then when we how much additional money are we spending every year to keep the Parker open? Is it significant? I think it was like an extra $1 million or so, in just capital costs and like repairs and all the things. But one of the not arguments, but I think the things we're gonna have to discuss with, especially people that are really fiscally involved with the town, is outside of just the cost of building a school, is the cost to maintain and to keep these things open and keep the duct tape on old
Right.
buildings. So are we gonna have a conversation about what those numbers
Yeah,
look like?
in the report, they had done like a site-by-site
I remember,
kind of projection of like what renovation costs would be.
Yeah.
It's not $1 million a year to say, just keep it afloat as it is now. The report pointed to, if you were to keep that space kind of operational for the next, 10, 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
the improvements that you would have to make to the facility around like electrical service
Just be
upgrades. Yeah, I mean, even on the modular classrooms, I don't think now, based on code, if we were to remove the old classrooms there, we'd be able to add the new ones. Because again, we don't have the fire system in the buildings, and that was kind of the hurdle we had to across with the other elementary schools. That's why we had to build them detached.
Yep.
But there's really not a good footprint on that particular property to have detached modules.
Yeah.
So that's when it gets costly, if you had to start doing like major renovations to the school. But it is all included in that report. I can send that to you.
No, we have the report. I just wanted, it's more for like when we're discussing it with, out in the town with.
It's not the general upkeep. I mean, that is something that we're doing every year. It's not costing us like $1 million to keep it open. But if we wanted to start making those investments, if this was gonna be a facility that had to be around long-term, it is gonna get costly.
I'd be curious to know how much it costs to replace those classrooms, just incidentally.
Yeah, I think it would be a little bit of
Yeah.
a guess because
Yeah.
you couldn't do it and actually attach them to the property. I mean, we could basically go back to the 2017 costs of an individual classroom. We know how much it was per room and tell you what replacing 11 would be. I don't know what the accelerator would be now, kind of post-pandemic, what the costs are, but, easily millions.
Yeah, no, it's gonna come up again too. I mean, that'll be an option that's put out.
Based on the capital plan, within the next 4 years, we're slated to spend about $2 million on just capital for Parker.
Yeah.
So, over the course of 4 years and, bring that back another 10 years and you're gonna come.
I think we just have to be prepared for the financial discussion, that's all.
Yeah.
Like, and if there are other financial motivators there, because what we're gonna hear, right, is we'll hear the Westlands every year. We open the Westlands again, or we're gonna hear, just tear those down and rebuild them, even though it's only $10 million, which was hard enough to get just the 7 or the 5 we got. So I just think we have to make sure, outside of all of the other benefits that it gives to the town, I think there are certain, residents that just are more.
I think even if you look at, if you were to put in like new modular classrooms, the next couple slides are just gonna show you some of the deficiencies of the facility. And again, this is just some of the issues that we ran into. So when the MSBA came out to the site, they had a whole kind of architectural team that looked at the building. And it's a very, I'm gonna call it unique, kind of design and layout to the space. It's basically 3 levels that are built into the ground. And if you look at this particular map, I guess you don't see some of the blue. Do you see it?
I'd advance, I bet you this.
You can see it on.
Oh, I gotta
It's an
keep
animation.
pushing the things. Right, so you have all of these corridors. Everything kind of basically works in a square. All of your instructional cores, you have to walk up and down stairs to get to the 3 levels. It's really not easy for the kids and the staff to be able to navigate. These little blue dots, there's 4 blue dots, those are technically the student bathrooms. So if you think about it, we don't have bathrooms for students on the first floor. So if you have to use a restroom, you have to come up to the main floor. In the next slide, you'll see also, we have a service elevator that services the 2nd and 3rd floor, but doesn't service the 1st floor. So if you're actually, let's say you were in a wheelchair, you needed to access it, you have to go outside the building, and we have a lift on the back of the building that you take up to the 1st floor to then be able to go to the elevator to take up to the 2nd floor.
That's no
So
way.
it's just not, it's not like super conducive. So, like on this particular slide, you see in the top left, it's the main stairway that you'd have to go down to get onto that 1st floor. The second picture with that yellow, that's like a cement slab staircase that you have to kind of actually duck under to get into the classroom that's on the far side of that wall. The third picture, and it's new, we actually installed this about a year ago because the other lift was failing. This is the lift that you would take if you were outside the building and you needed to get to the 2nd or 3rd floor. So you go outside, it's an open air lift that you kind of jump into to get up to the main building. And then when you're in the building itself, it's kind of a darker classroom. A lot of it really is just because of the vintage of the building, the vintage of the, the electrical lights and things along those lines. It's not a particularly bright building. The ceilings are all kind of a formed cement in the buildings. They don't have acoustical, we've added a little bit of acoustical paneling, but like it wasn't part of the design. So the building is like very echoey when it comes to instruction. It's a louder building.
Yeah, can I just I don't think people actually underestimate how much not having good sound baffling, like in a room affects. I mean, we've definitely seen that, and it's really rattling, actually.
Yeah. And again, where this school is primarily cement, like within the classrooms in the bottom left, you can see again, the lighting is not the best, but we don't have any kind of like acoustical ceiling tiles, which you would normally see to help on the sound. But that also typically hides a lot of the wiring and the piping. So all the piping in the school is exposed. So you can kind of see that there. Again, the bottom left, second picture in, just kind of is another issue with the lighting, just kind of poor. We have a cafeteria slash kind of stage area in the school, but you can't actually access the stage from the caf. You have to go up through the caf to go back around to be able to get on the stage. It's just not very, workable, or the design is a little tough for people to work around. And then again, when you talk about acoustics, John, like the musical classroom without having acoustics is tough. And again, we have the, you can see like the exposed wiring and tubing and things like that on the ceiling. Just because of the vintage of the building, we didn't have encased work. You don't have drywall where things would be hidden behind it. Everything is basically surface mounted within the space.
And many people might think it's kind of petty, but all that darkness in the wires could just really affect your emotional mood. And that does affect how you feel going through a school day. In a place that just looks dark and old,
I agree with you, and I think there's something to be said about pride, right? Like we talk about pride all the time in Chelmsford, and I think there's something to be said about being proud of the spaces you have. And Parker has serviced the community really well for a long time, but it's just kind of, it's outgrown its age. It's aged more than other buildings that in our town. I mean, even the McCarthy is in better condition, and it looks like a more classic school. Parker was it was unique at the time. It serviced students, but I think it's come to the end of its long life.
And you want to have a modern curriculum, well, you have to have a building that can accommodate all of that.
Imagine like a new middle school where like kids are walking in and they're like just proud to be part of this new thing in town. It's really neat. I was part of a new school build in Lowell, in the on Wang Middle School, and everybody was like, "We're the new Wang kids." It was great. It was cool.
So, I agree with you, is that some people may say, well, aesthetics aside, the building is just fine, but, it really isn't.
No.
I don't think that this building reflects all the changes that we've seen in education over the years, or, running an efficient school in terms of, class size, instruction, making it available to all students. If you have a student in a wheelchair, it makes me sad to think that they would have to go around the outside of the building,
How exclusionary is that?
right?
Get outside.
To be able to access school classes on another floor.
Well, it makes it literally impossible on certain
Right.
days with
So,
weather.
As I said, aesthetics aside, I mean, this is, I think we could point to any one of our buildings, but this is the one that, is the MSBA has decided, is a viable, project. And, I think that, as I said, education has changed, and the needs of our students have changed, our teachers, the needs of the teachers have changed, education has changed. We need to think about that going forward.
I think even for security and
Yep, exactly, that's another change.
Security, that's a big
the
one.
security of our
it's another
students
change.
and our staff, and secondly, for the creation of community. It's a problem. I mean, I've been in there. I hadn't been in there ever until I came onto the school committee. And I was actually very, very surprised on the hurdles you had to get through to get from
I got
one
lost.
place to another.
You have to go through a room to go to a room, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, there's
Go to
a
another
few on
teacher's
the
classroom to
first
get
floor.
there.
It's
Right.
really
Just
quite
makes no sense.
astounding.
I don't know what the architect was thinking.
Well, and, I think this is what I'm saying about the, safety is a change in education.
Absolutely.
And there's, other things to consider, so,
Yeah.
I think that these are some of the things that, that you're talking
That
about.
also was what helped us make a compelling argument for this particular project, with the state.
I would say too, maybe, I know you have pictures of things that are in here, and these seem a little bit more, I know they're not necessarily aesthetic, because we all know, because we do this work. But maybe like a slide with some less, like maybe like something where like, how much would a sprinkler system cost, right? Like the systems that we would need to continue to upgrade this, how much would security cost? Maybe have some like generic, like, this is the cost of this, because again, we're gonna be really pitching this to town, people in town, so.
I think we could probably pull some data from the
Yeah, get, like, some
the
ideas.
renovation reports that just would document already, like what are some of the improvements that would have to be done
Yeah.
if it were to stay.
So when we say we're gonna replace the elevator here, it doesn't replace the lift.
Well, no, the lift we replaced last, I think it was like last summer, early
Those
fall.
are two different things, so.
Yeah, that's just an
Yeah.
exterior lift in the building. So, yeah, there would be an elevator on the inside of the building, but the elevator on the inside of the building only services the first and second floor.
Exactly.
There's no capacity to go digging down to have it connect to the first floor. They would have done that when they built the building. Right. Just a couple of other notes just on these slides. Obviously, you've got the gymnasium. It doesn't quite, because again, just based on the numbers we have and having multiple classes at the same time, it doesn't allow everyone to fit in the gym at the same time. We've converted one of the modular classrooms in the back of the building into kind of a health center. So not quite to the level that we did at McCarthy in that room, but they have a health center that the kids use as a rotation for health and phys ed classes. You do have the cafeteria. You have the stage, which is attached to it. And that bottom middle picture is just a demonstration that, the number of classroom spaces that we have are at the point where when you're offering multiple music classes at the same time, because oftentimes you have different classes that are going, there's not enough classroom space. That's true. So they're actually using the stage as a classroom, which, as long as there's no one in the cafeteria, it's just very loud, but, it's a usable space, but it's just not ideal. And again, just given the size of the kids in space, even like if you're trying to do like an assembly in the school, in the gym, obviously you normally try to, like, say, pull out the bleachers or whatever, but this gym isn't just built for that. We have like elementary school type bleachers, just based on the size of the gym. It's very difficult to pull the kids together for an assembly.
A lot of square footage. This was built as a elementary?
I honestly wasn't here. I don't know if it was an elementary or.
100,000 square feet on an elementary, though? That's a lot.
I don't know what it called for at the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't here either.
Now we're going to kind of shift, Maria, a little bit into some of the enrollment stuff. Perfect. So with all of this in mind, we did, back in 2022, we kind of retooled our application, and we applied for the middle school project with consideration. We found out that we actually were approved this past December for the Parker project, so we did have to try that for 2 years. But this past December, we got voted into the project. And then technically, our eligibility period is going to begin April 1st. We're already doing some of the legwork now, but that's a period that's going to go from April 1st until about December 31st. And again, this touches on the enrollment we had mentioned earlier. The 2016 and the 2020 estimate were lower. We're actually already at 5,130 students this current year, and originally that had been projected out for the 25-26 school year. So we're already a couple of years ahead. I think this slide, again, is helpful. You can tell me now or after if you'd like it to be different, but it just kind of shows that we've already exceeded the where we thought we were going to be. And I think this also just speaks in the long run as well. Where are we going to be in, beyond 2030, when, potential new school could come on board? We're at 5130 now. Given the latest projection that we just did last fall, which again, we're kind of firming up with a more thorough change, we're looking at about 5,800 kids potentially by the 34, that's supposed to say 3034. It says 3024. I'll fix that. But by the 3034 school year. So, another 700 kids coming in the district is pretty significant. And we don't have the space, obviously, for that, so we're going to have there be some type of a building plan. That's why we think this one makes the most sense.
If I could just, I was just going to quickly say that 2030, there was no way I'll be on the school committee, and I was going to make a joke, but I might actually be on the school committee, so never mind.
You never know.
Never know.
This is the little slide that we just kind of used to the public last time, kind of talking about all the different phases. This is when we decided on a middle school project. Again, we had to pick high school, middle school, elementary, which different proposal we wanted to go with, which school we were going to go with. We ultimately applied in 22 of April for the Parker Middle School project. We then now have to kind of move into, because we have been invited into the eligibility period, taking a look at different options with the MSBA for what a new school building at that level would look like. And so ultimately, these are going to be the three possibilities that they want to vet with us. The first, because again, this has to be targeted at a middle school, would be if we were to just replace Parker Middle School 1-for-1, keep it a two-strand school serving only grades 5 and 6 students. Obviously, then McCarthy would remain 7 and 8, and we would have Byham, Center, Harrington, and South Row continue to be K-4. That particular option really would produce a new school for grades 5 and 6 but it does not help the district in any way with the enrollment issue. Option two would be to look at building a new middle school for the entire town, but going back to a comprehensive grade 5 and 8 middle school all in one building. That would be a very large middle school. For some context, if you think about the first one, just given our current numbers, you're looking at about an 800 student school. If you were to look at doing a 5 to 8 middle school, a new Parker, for the entire town, you'd be looking at minimally a 1,600 student school. When you get, now again, we have to look at all these options with the MSBA, but that's about the size of the high school. So you're almost kind of building a high school size school. And you wouldn't build just a traditional 1,600 student middle school. It would be unwieldy, in my opinion. Districts that have done this have kind of had like half the building be 5, 6, the other half 7, 8. You have some core spaces, but you have to have like a school within a school type concept. But again, that's something that we have to vet out. If that happened, obviously, the old Parker would come offline. That's the school that gets returned. And McCarthy is an extra site, so that potentially would help us with our enrollment issue. The thought would be potentially McCarthy being like a pre-K to 4. You'd have to rezone the whole district. But McCarthy could potentially pick up pre-K to 4, or minimally K to 4. And then Byam Center, Harrington, South Row could remain their K to 4s. Again, you just have to redistrict. So option two would result in a very large middle school. Probably, it would be the most expensive project of them all. And it would require rezoning to basically spread the elementary kids around the district into the resulting 4 schools.
So I have a question about that one. If pre-K went into McCarthy, what would be going on with Westlands?
Yeah, I mean, this was just the thought process at the time.
Yeah, just wondering.
There was some consideration given to trying to integrate the preschool into the elementary schools. So again, this was just the concept at the time. You potentially could have, you probably have the space, depending on the rezoning. You could potentially do pre-K to 4 at all 5 schools. There's some consensus around keeping the pre-K kids together just for programming purposes, and McCarthy would just have the most space. You don't have to do that. You could keep the preschool at the CHIPS at the Westland School. That's viable as well. If they left that school, you'd probably just pick up more, community ed classrooms. The two of them kind of compete for space over there. But the concept was basically to be able to spread your elementary population, whether it be K4 or pre-K4, over 5 schools instead of 4. So it does address that.
It does, but I think, but when you say rezoning, you mean redistrict.
Reshuffling all the kids in
Yeah,
town.
so reshuffling all the kids, I think anything that eliminates, the thing I don't like about this option, aside from it doesn't, I agree with you, the building's too big, but then also, again, we have to look at all these options, but the thought of redistricting all of these children and then like trying to figure all that out is a huge administrative headache, and it's really disruptive, I imagine, to the kids too, so, the students, so.
Yeah, again, you have to look at it with the
have to look
SBA,
at it, but-
and you'd be talking about doing something 7+ years out. So it's not like it's going to affect kids now. You would
Oh, no, I
telegraph
know,
for parents how it would happen. So, there is that piece of it, but you still have to go through the,
Redistricting is always hard.
it is.
We've never done it, but I've heard of other people.
It's difficult.
Yeah, you've
You
done
know,
it, you've
it's
done it.
nowhere near as bad on the kids as it is on the parents, but it also would muddy the waters of this. You're not talking a new building, and you're now putting that other idea in people's heads. It's not my favorite option,
Next
that's
option's
for
the
sure.
apple of my eye.
So the third option is to do a potential new Parker school. Have it also take a look at a grade level reconfiguration with our elementary schools. So instead of building a 2-strand school, having Parker become a 3-strand school and have Parker take on grades 4, 5, and 6. McCarthy would remain 7, 8, so that building goes unchanged. But what that allows you to do with the other 4 elementary schools is have them go K3. So you're basically removing at least 100 kids from each of the elementary schools, and they're feeding up to Parker, which is a new school. So that school would be built for about 1,200, let's say, as a size. And benefits, it does address your enrollment. It's age appropriate and educationally appropriate for grades 4, 5, and 6 to be together, where the curriculum works and things like that. It's a good age group of kids. And again, that gives you longevity on your 4 elementary school buildings, because now you're taking away their capacity issues. So that one does we're not supposed to have, we have to go through the process. Of the three, that's kind of my, at this point in time, I've always kind of been interested in that one, but obviously, work to be done. But those are the three options that as a community, we would have to, again, hold visioning sessions, we would have an OPM, an architect working with us, have to get community input, but those are really the three options, which is kind of nice because it wouldn't be muddied. Like the first time we just did the pure visioning sessions, we were like starting from scratch. We at least now have three concepts to really kind of work through the pros and cons on and come up as a community with what would work, the best for us.
And this does not even consider the fact that when we were talking about these concepts, there was the potential that pre-K is going to become more extensive an offering in our state. And if that happens, we have an additional huge problem. So, that doesn't even consider this.
No, and I mean, as we go through this over the next couple of years, I'm sure at the state level too, there'll be more discussions about like universal pre-K and what that would mean for districts. We have a pre-K program right now for the students that we're required to program for, our students who are qualifying for IEPs, but we don't have an across-the-board, preschool program. So that is something also that, I'm sure will come into the discussion at some point. But those would be the three, that we'd kind of be vetting out in this process. And just kind of where we're at in the process, it's a very early phase. So we're in the file left in the box that's kind of dashed, the eligibility period, which is a 270-day period, as I mentioned, that's going to start officially on April 1st, go all the way through December 31st of next year. And there are all different kind of benchmarks that you have to reach on that. And we'll go back to that in a moment. In the eligibility period, and then if you get to the feasibility stage, is when you would put your project team together, your building committee and whatnot. Ultimately, if the town approves the funding for the feasibility study, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, you'd be going out to hire like an owner's project manager, the OPM, you'd be hiring an architect to do all the different work, to do these visioning sessions, and ultimately put together schematic designs for whatever the potential project would be, because you would then bring that back to the community to sell the town on getting interest and support for this particular project, because it would need to be funded. That, what the MSBA is telling us, the earliest would be, I forget, it was late summer, early fall of '26. So that's still quite some time off. But if you vote and then you fund the project at that time, let's just say it's the fall of '26, funding gets approved, you then have at least another 9 months to a year while you're doing all of your final detailed drawings, putting all of your plans together to go out to bid. So you're potentially bidding the project, awarding contracts, breaking ground a year later in the fall, winter of '27, 28, and you're looking at about a 2.5 to 3 year build. So it's conceivable, if everything goes well, it's the 30-31 school year at some point around that benchmark where you'd actually be opening up the new facility. Like I said.
I have another question, kind of back toward what we were talking about, the different options. I'm totally new to this process, and I understand that the financial part of it is huge.
Right.
And it's going to have to drive a lot of it. But how much does that other part you talked about, what's more educationally sound and much more developmentally appropriate and developmentally sound, how much does that piece play into the ultimate decision?
So when we get into the feasibility study, all right, so that doesn't really happen in the eligibility period that we're going into first. So we're going to need to get town funding and town support to fund the feasibility study. So at this point in time, we're looking at likely April town meeting, trying to get support for that project. The feasibility study is going to cost somewhere between $1.5 million to $2 million in that ballpark, of which approximately half is going to be reimbursed by the state. So, obviously I want to go forward with the project. If God forbid it ever didn't go forward, the state's still going to reimburse you your half, and we're going to have to pay for the other half. It's at that point when you get to like December, when you do all your paperwork and everything, when you go out to bid and you bring your project manager on, your architect on board, there's a whole other component of feasibility where you have to take a look at your desired educational program, what you want to see in these buildings, how you want to see the spaces used, how you want to group your academic programs together. You'd actually go out to look at other schools that were new to see, like, do you like the concepts as they put in? Do you not like the concept? So you actually want to put together this whole kind of educational profile, how are you going to use the facility? You would never want to build a facility just to a dollar amount.
Right.
You want to, as a community, get support for what you're going to build, and then ultimately bring that to the community to try to get their support. You don't want to have a building that is, you just built because it works in the budget, but it's not going to produce the long-term results that you need educationally, or even facility-wise. But that all kind of happens during the feasibility stage. So that's like about a year away.
Okay.
But
As you've seen too, like we get to go to the well once, so I think it's nice that not just the committee, but the community, like staff, a lot of people will have input in like what goes into the building, and if we're gonna go to the well, we should.
there's a lot. I mean, there's going to be a lot of, community meetings, community briefings, visioning sessions like we had previously to kind of get input from everyone. We're going to want to hear from, obviously, the staff who potentially be working in the building.
Yeah.
We're going to want to hear from the parents whose kids are going to potentially be going to that school. Community members, what they might like to see in the facility. That's what the project manager and the architect are going to lead, work-wise. And then ultimately, like, we'll be putting together what we see as the educational vision for the school. And when that all comes together, that's what we'll be kind of marketing and trying to sell to the community.
So I was thinking about one thing, and I'm not sure this ties in exactly to what you were talking about, but, the MSBA decided that we needed a new building, and that's a high hurdle to have to get over.
really is.
Right? You know what I mean? So they've said that, your facility is inadequate for a variety of different reasons, and we're willing to embark in this process with you in order to see that you get a new building. And they just don't do it lightly, and how many years, what was it total that we applied?
It was our sixth application.
Right. So, I think people have to understand that, as I said, getting over that hurdle was a big one. And it was because it was really determined by them that we needed a new
Recognized
facility.
as a real need.
100%, based on all of the things that we've talked about tonight. The safety, the changes in education, just the condition of the building, all of these things, I think, were factors that they considered, so.
Getting a little deeper into, so we looked at that first box that's in the checkers up there on the slide. So within that first box, it kind of gets blown out like this. So this is that 270-day period that they call eligibility, where on the far left top is when we were invited into the program in December. We then have all these timelines that we have to meet, in the first 30 days. And again, our timeline isn't going to start until April 1st. But, we have to do the compliance certifications. We then have to form a school building committee. We have to do the original educational profile that kind of talks about how we'd want to use the space, what grade levels we'd want to include. We need to work with the MSBA on an enrollment projection. Again, that's why we're having NESDEC come back and do another full-blown projection for us, because we want to have our data when we start meeting with the MSBA, because they have their own ways of doing enrollment. You have to agree on what the target's going to be that you want to build for. You don't want to build, obviously, they don't want to build for too much, and you end up paying more than you have to for a space. We obviously don't want to underbuild. We don't want to build this facility and then 5 years later realize it's not meeting our needs. We have too many kids and not enough capacity. So that's a very critical piece of it. We're also then going to have to work with the maintenance plans in the buildings. They want to see that if they actually partner with us and build a new building, that we're going to maintain them. That, I think, is an area we're going to excel in, because obviously we've proven that we maintain our buildings, but we're going to have to put that together for them. And then ultimately you vote to get the local authorization for the feasibility study. I think we're going to do it a little out of order just because of the way the town meetings line up for us in April. I think that'll be one of the first votes we take, as opposed to some of these other junctures. But I'm working with the SBA on that now. And then ultimately sometime, let's say we even get stuff done a little bit ahead of time, sometime at the earliest would be like next fall. Latest would be like the winter time. We would go back to the MSBA. We'd say we've done all these kind of prerequisites. We've hit them all. We have our funding. We now want to get invited into feasibility. We want to move to that next step. So we would then go to an MSBA meeting and hopefully get invited into feasibility. And that's when kind of the real, not that this other work isn't real. It's just like that's when the actual nitty-gritty around the building type stuff really starts to kick in. And on this slide, I just kind of laid out those deliverable dates for you. That lines up with the previous one.
One, I don't know if there's something that could be included in here in terms of we're not operating just solely as a school committee, we're operating as a school committee within the town. And in the next few years, several things are gonna happen that will also lead to greater enrollment and so on. If we had something in here that showed the number of permits that can be pulled for that project that's already approved, anything potentially that's coming up in the next few years is not even addressed in this project. People need to consider this.
That's going to be in our enrollment projection. So,
Okay, and so are we getting that new report before town meeting? What's going on with that?
well, no, so because town meeting would basically just be voting to approve the funding for the feasibility study. But one of the benchmarks here is you have to agree on the enrollment projection with the MSBA, and that's likely not going to happen until later in the spring or over the summertime. We have NASDAQ doing an updated, full-blown report for us. That would be like our data that we would bring to the table to show how much growth we think we're going to experience and how much capacity we need to build
For the MSBA people.
for the MSBA people.
In terms of funding our $1.5 million that we need in order to get this thing off the rolling,
Yeah,
if I'm just a town meeting rep, I'm not sitting on the school committee and listening to school committee meetings all the time. And if I'm new to the town meeting and so on, I may not realize that we have all of these things out there that are going to quickly add to the numbers.
right.
And I think that that's important to point out.
Well, we can even in the budget itself, like our budget document, in the very back, we always list our enrollment projection. It's in there. And we have the updated one from this past fall. So that's in there also that shows our current enrollment and even like what our projection is. We can certainly point to that. I don't know if you want it represented differently within these slides?
But Maria, what you're saying is that
I
you
think what I'm
want to
saying-
also let people know that we're aware of these other projects that are in the
Right.
pipeline.
What other
That
projects?
are
We're
going
gonna
to.
be impacted by
It's like the
this.
West Campus and things.
West Campus.
Oh, we're talking projects outside the school?
No, I think what
Housing
Maria's
that's-
saying is
that's
like potential
coming.
additional kids coming to the district.
Oh, yeah,
Housing
yeah,
that's
because we have all the new
coming that will
buildings.
boost
I
our
got it, yeah.
numbers.
There are a lot of people, who sometimes don't realize, we voted on certain things
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
that are going to impact what's gonna happen for
Got it,
us
got it,
here.
Yeah.
I
At the
understand
school
that.
level, the decisions that we have to make.
Right.
We're already anticipating those things, and
Or, action that has been taken by the state, like the whole,
exactly, maybe
MBTA.
the pre-K and all of this stuff
and
is.
the other one
And the
too.
migrant housing.
MBTA.
MBTA.
Right.
Oh, MBTA
Yep.
one,
The
yeah.
Find those
MBTA,
numbers,
yep,
yes.
good point.
So,
All of these things are possibilities. If you had one slide that says, things that are gonna impact us in terms of our enrollment coming forward, because people think, this is stagnant. And actually, our population has grown quite a bit.
Right.
From the last census to this
Right.
time, and that's why we're getting more money from the state, but never mind that. We're getting very little increase this coming year. But, that's why, is because we're changing in
Right.
terms of our community, and we're getting younger people. who are
We
coming into the
definitely can
town.
point to the increase. I mean, that's even just witnessed in the existing numbers. But as part of the enrollment projection, one of the things that the reps from NASDAQ do is I put them in contact with Evan Belansky, who's the town planner. And they will work with him to get information on like permits that have been pulled for properties, like I know, say West Campus would be in there and things.
Yeah.
So they will use that in their factoring. I also had to provide them the names of real estate agents who participate in Chelmsford, so I've done that. And they're gonna be talking to those agents to try to get a sense for the market, how things are turning over, what they're seeing. So that is all gonna come into the enrollment projection. Well, if I take another look at this, I'll see if I can make some of the enrollment stuff a little clearer on those slides. But, we definitely, just our actuals are showing this increase. But the fact that we've surpassed even what the 2016 and 20 projections at that time were, I think speaks to the increase that's coming. It's actually coming at a quicker pace than we had anticipated.
Yeah, because you'd be totally, I don't know if you're surprised, but quite a few people think we have a lot of capacity. And I think it's because all they think about is the high school.
Right.
And that's the last school they went to, especially if they were in the town. And they see that at that time, the class was much higher, much larger than what it is today. So I think it's really important for people to see that we've got a big problem at the
Right.
lower levels, and it's only gonna get worse.
Right. And we have capacity at the high school. I mean, the reports point to that, but when you look at that, the PDF, the slide of the colors, and you see all 4 of the elementary schools are red.
Right, right.
You know, Parker is red. It's because we're over capacity. We have built, you know, with the elementary schools, recently, 22 classrooms had to be added as modular buildings, and they were already full. So I think if people have a sense of what's happening in the building, I don't think they'd be like shocked that we're, you know, over capacity.
I think that particular slide is a good, quick,
those
easy
levels.
visual for people to see and understand quickly.
Right. Doesn't require a lot of thought to
Yeah.
be like, there it is.
I have a question about reimbursement from the state.
Yeah.
When does that begin? Is it for construction, or do we begin right with the feasibility study, that we're eligible for reimbursement for that?
No, so what would end up happening is part of the program, you have to sign what they call a project funding agreement. And so there'd be a project funding agreement for the feasibility study, and then there would ultimately be a project funding agreement for the construction portion. So let's say it was $1.5 million we allocated. The town would approve that. We wouldn't need that money right up front because we wouldn't be doing this for about another 9 months. We're kind of doing that first, so we wouldn't go out to bond right away, but you'd have the capacity to. Ultimately, it's a pay-as-you-go kind of reimbursement system, so, you know, maybe quarterly. I mean, I guess you could do it monthly, but usually you do it kind of quarterly. If we spend out $500,000, we can submit a claim, and the MSBA would review it, audit it, and once approved, they would give us $250,000 back. So it's a reimburse-as-you-go type program.
That's good.
And I think that's what's important message for us to get out, is the money we're looking for right now is for the feasibility. We're not looking for the
Correct.
money for a building yet. And that money is still reimbursable.
Yeah, and you also don't want to get like too far ahead of yourself, because I think we do need to focus on the feasibility pieces the first, because we don't know what the ultimate school will be. We don't know what the ultimate design will be, how much it will cost. I mean, it would be total speculation at this point to say what it is. And I don't think we should get kind of pinned into saying, well, this is what we want to build, here's what it's going to cost. Because truly, we want the community to be part of that. We need this initial money to be able to hire the experts to come in and work with us as a community to figure out what do we want to build. Then what will it cost, and how will we fund it and finance it?
But one thing I think that we should get in there at some point, if not right now, is what's coming off of the town's capital. You know, the various large projects that are coming off of the debt schedule. Because I think we're in a good spot if I'm right. Right? We have a lot of things coming off the debt.
So get all sad back there.
Like, we're paying off like the fire station, not the fire station, but the police station, the libraries.
Yeah, well, that's all off, that's all.
Right, so, but we're in a good spot in terms of.
But those, there's really nothing in the immediate years that's gonna come off of any significance.
Okay.
So we paid off, the center school's been paid off, the library's been paid off, the police station's been paid off.
Right.
And so right now, you're probably steady at about $7 million of debt service per year. And that's slightly increasing about $200,000 per year because we're pushing up our capital because.
Right.
You know, from the capital planning process, we have a large amount of capital projects.
But I do think also too, and we're talking about, as I said, the feasibility study, that, you know, we're going to be asking for a certain amount of money, but we are entitled to reimbursement for a portion of that. So,
50%.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing 50%, because when we did the South Row Accelerated Repair Project a couple of years ago, it was in the low 50s. I don't know if it was 52, 53, or something like that. I think it's just safer to say about half. I think that's what people are going to understand. But that number would be quantified when we do the funding agreement.
Right.
But it's going to be based on our community, about half would come from the state.
Now, another question might come up, and I don't know if you know where you put it, is location. Like, you know, where are we gonna put this? And, you know, what are our options and?
So again, that has to be part of the feasibility piece, because the group is gonna come in and they're gonna wanna look and kind of vet all the possible spaces. And I don't think we wanna get pinned into like what would happen there either. The only two options you have are to build the project on town-owned property, or to basically go the eminent domain route or buy property or something like that. But Communities don't typically do that because any of those costs are not reimbursable. So that kind of makes you want to build the property on your own facility. So originally, when we were doing some of the visioning, some of the concepts that came up that all, again, have to be vetted the same way you have to vet the other three, is oftentimes schools will build the new school next to the old school, because typically you have a school and you have a playground area. You build the new school in the playground area, and then you knock down the old school and create playground area. So it's like a flip-flop. So I think there's a possibility that has to be looked at, is that whole field that's adjacent to Parker, I think is a potential site. Originally, it also was talked about, if you're looking at McCarthy Middle School from the front, in the back left property, corner property, is just a big field space back there. That was also flagged as a potential site, and that would actually kind of join those two buildings. Parking lot wise, you could kind of route things because they do share buses at this point. That was a possibility. On Graniteville, up behind this, the softball field, kind of tucked in the back right-hand corner, there's an older baseball field. That was also flagged as a potential site. There was a potential site over near the DPW dog park over that way. I'm not familiar with that road, the name.
Richardson.
Richardson. Yeah, again, I don't know how viable that is, but that was like a town-owned property. So what they will do is, with their GIS mapping, take a look at any of the town-owned parcels that meet the minimum square footage that they need, and you would vet out all of those, because they're gonna have pros, they're gonna have cons, they're gonna have costs associated with them, but that also has to be part of the feasibility study. So, I tell you what if you give some thought to the presentation I gave you, and even the slides? If you want to look them through, if you again, I'll look a little bit at the enrollment stuff to see if I can make it a little clearer. But if there are any other things you think are glaringly missing, or you want me to like highlight, just shoot me an email, or just even like jot down what you want on a slide. I'll try over the next week to kind of finalize something for you, just so that you have it, because I do think like, we've got another week and then we're on February vacation. But after February vacation, we're gonna get into doing like our budget. And then March, I think, would really be a good time, when we're hitting like PTO meetings or council meetings and things like that, to share some of these slides, or share whatever you're comfortable with presentation-wise, just so everyone in our group at least has an opportunity to kind of hear about this before April, and we start getting into elections and town meeting and things like that. So if that works for people, if you just kind of let me know by the end of next week where you're at, I'll get it all fine-tuned over February vacation. I'll work with Donna and the rest of the committee. Maybe we can pick a date in March to just have like kind of a, we haven't had like a community forum, but we could have a community presentation where I could do it as well. We could record it and at least, kind of do some playback. Just so that, I don't want to have someone say, oh, I have no idea what you're doing, or, I didn't know this was even out there, just to find ways to kind of continue to talk about the project.
But so our next meeting's the 27th? So we could kind of finalize the talking points, because like the week after that would be PTO meetings again already.
Well, I'm asking if it's at all possible, like through the end of this week and even next week, to give me your
Well, I know,
comments.
right, but then our next meeting is when we kind of be ready to say, here's the things we're gonna go out.
Yeah,
through
well,
the meetings.
well, even after you give them to me, I'll incorporate them, and I can just email you the
Okay.
presentation at that point. I won't do another one because that last meeting in February is our budget meeting.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we'll usually dedicate that to that. But you'll at least hopefully feel confident with the file that I give you.
I think putting this on our website would be important.
Sure.
The presentation. And, right, and the other thing is the community, for the community forum, I think we need to invite every town rep with a letter saying it's gonna be held on this date. Love to have you come.
Yeah, but I think that gives us March to really kind of market how we want to do this.
Right.
To answer questions, have these discussions so it doesn't come as a surprise to anyone.
Great,
Okay?
Sounds good.
Yay.
thank you.
All right, anything else?
So glad to be finally having these conversations.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks for all the work, too.
No, happy,
Yeah, thank
happy
you.
to pull it together.
You all done in 7 years?
Yeah.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Would you mind? We'll just
All
do a
right, so,
5-minute
uh,
recess.
Yeah.
And then,
Okay.
Take a motion.
come back.
5-minute recess.
All right. Back? Yeah. So you do have the recommended budget in front of you this evening, and just to set context for the community watching or anything like that. So at this particular meeting, I present my recommended budget to the school committee. I'm going to talk you through the format, which has remained consistent over the last number of years. The document will be posted up to the website tomorrow morning, so anyone from the public can see it if they would like to. Again, it follows the same format. Tonight, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but I'm really just going to provide a general overview. You can kind of read it and review it at your leisure over the next couple of weeks. And then we have our budget meeting when we come back from February vacation. So our regular budget, our regular meeting at the end of February is literally to go page by page through the budget, the recommendations, answer your questions and whatnot. If anything comes up between now and then, I recommend, just let me know ahead of time, shoot me an email. I'm happy to put additional information together for you, just to make it as kind of understandable, and we try to be as comprehensive as we possibly can be. In the budget, again, we kept the narrative the same. On page 7 is where we'll kind of flip to talk through some of the recommendations for next year. Page 11 is your summary level totals. This is where the budget all kind of adds up. And then behind that, you have your category levels. So those are all your individual pages that basically sum up to the total page. And then after the budget kicks in the staff salary book, and that is all a crosswalk to the main document, so you can see all the people and the FTEs and how they factor in. And the appendices are the same as we had done traditionally as well. So you have your student enrollment projection, you have your grant and revolving funds, they're all at the back of this. So what I would recommend is just for you to kind of follow along. Obviously, I have the slides, but you're probably going to want to go to page 7. That will walk you through this. But just when it comes to the current year budget that we have, fiscal year '24, we're very fortunate that all of our collective bargaining agreements were in place for the current year, and for '25, they're in place as well. So we know what our steps and lanes are going to be, we know what our contracts are going to be, so that's been very helpful for us. As Joanna and I have presented at previous meetings, we're in very good shape this year for fiscal '24. Our local operating budget is looking in solid shape. Our grants and revolving funds are in solid shape. We'll be again bringing you some recommendations for some one-time purchases to reallocate some of the money within fiscal '24 when we, get to March and we're getting closer to the end of the third quarter, which we typically like to do. One of the things I do, in the first narrative piece is always just kind of tie to, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's the same information from the tri-board meeting in December, but we always kind of benchmark ourselves against other comparable communities in the state. And the first one of the areas we look at is our actual spending over what our required net school spending for the state is. We actually spend a little bit more. We're at 33%. This was back in '22, kind of the audited final numbers. 33% over net school spending. Everyone in the state is supposed to spend at least 100% of their budget. There were only a handful of communities, I think 6 or 7, that actually spend less than their required amount. So everyone kind of gauges themselves on how much they spend over the amount. Average statewide is 27.5%. You'll see Chelmsford actually spent 33%, which was above the state average in '22. And among our communities, we're just shy of the halfway point. So we have 7 communities that spent over us, 3 that spent a little bit less than us. And again, on this particular slide, we are right at the point right above the state spending.
And just for anybody watching at home, ignore Burlington.
Burlington's a little bit of an outlier, but they are one of our comparable districts.
Just a point of reference. When it comes to the required, there's very few districts that can only spend what is required by the state in order to run a school system.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I think there were like 6 that actually spent below it, and then 230-something that spent more. Required is absolutely the base amount of money that the state determines through the Chapter 70 funding formula that you need to provide an adequate education for students. There are very few communities that spend lower than that. That should not be the target.
Right, and I think that's the point that I wanted to make, right?
Right.
That the base amount is simply not enough. And this is why so many schools have to spend over that amount.
Correct. And I think that's why the comparable to like how much over you spend.
Right.
And your comparable districts is the important piece.
Okay, thank you.
We do take a look at student-teacher ratio, and this is something we've actually been working on over the last number of years. We've added some staff that have helped with this in our core program as well as our specialized programming. We're right at the midpoint of this particular category, where our average class size, 21 was the last year that they officially reported it, was 12.8 to 1. We had half the communities of our comps with a slightly better class size and half with a slightly less. We are a little bit over the state average on this one, but not significantly. This is an area we really have actually worked on. Again, this is data from 21 on our average teacher salaries, and we are in the bottom third of our comps on this particular category. In our last collective bargaining with our unions, we actually did a couple of different salary augmentations on the scale. We've actually eliminated step one in the last two contracts. We have increased some money on the top step of the contracts, so I definitely see this number increasing. Whether it ends up increasing at the rate our comparable districts are is to be seen. We don't all negotiate on the same cycle, but this is an area that we obviously are focusing on and are trying to work on. You'll see we're a little bit below the average state salary on this one as well.
Has that improved over the years?
It has. There's something, we are working on, because again.
Well, no, we work on it. I just, am like, we just.
It is, but the hard gauge is that our other comparable districts don't have contracts that are running the same cycle as us. So if someone's in, say, like the last year of a contract, sometimes you will find like a little extra kicked in, say, year 3 of a contract. That could be like our year 1 or 2 when something didn't happen. It's just hard to gauge. Per pupil expenditures is another category that across the state districts kind of compare to. And we're below the state average on in-district per pupil spending, but we're right in the middle of our comparable districts. So we spend, right at the halfway point. We've got 5 communities that spend a little bit more than us and 6 communities that spend less. So that's obviously another mark that we use. So within the narrative, this is all kind of laid out for you to read a little further if you'd like to. And that was all kind of related to 24 and then the previous years as far as some of those state data points. When we start to look at the 25 budget, so this is the budget that would go into effect in July. Town Manager Cohen made his recommendation to the Select Board last Monday evening, and then typically we follow the week after with the school department's recommended budget. The town manager recommended just shy of 3.2 million as an increase in the budget for next year for us, which would be going from 70.7 million up to 73.88 million. I, in working closely with him, had been asking for a number in the, hopefully, in the $3.5 million range. Chapter 70 came in, quite honestly, far less than I thought it would this year. We got a little bit of that windfall last year with the Student Opportunity Act, and I think a lot of it was predicated on the one of the rates being significantly higher in the formula than the inflation rate than we're witnessing this particular year, and the formula is heavily tied to that. So in the governor's budget, which came out, which we have to kind of start with, she included a increase of $30 per head as a minimum on aid. So for us, it was about $160,000 of an increase after getting a $2 million increase last year. I didn't think we necessarily were going to get the $2 million increase, but I thought we were going to get a significantly higher amount than that. Also given the fact that we had about 80 additional students to the district that we didn't have the previous year. So when you're looking at an average per pupil of about 16,000 and you're having 80 kids come in, I really did think we were going to be in excess of $1 million again on that Chapter 70 number. Disappointing. I'm hoping that, in the, not overly optimistic, just again, given the state revenue figures, that the legislature sometimes increases that. In the prior years, they've increased it to at least $60 a head. I don't think we're going to see relief realistically through the funding formula itself. This year, I think if we're going to get anything, it's going to be through that. It's just it's a tight window for us funding-wise. what ends up happening when, we get $160,000 at Chapter 78 and our budget's going up $3 million, we really are dependent on the town to fund that money. And I have to say, in my tenure here, the town has been very good partners in education. It's certainly one of the priorities that I know Town Manager Cohen, but the Select Board has supported our budgets, the Finance Committee has supported our budgets, Town Meeting has been very supportive of our budgets, and, we find ourselves again working with them to fund our budget for next year. I've created a budget that aligns with the manager's recommendation for next year. As we get into this, I'll show you how I've done that. We did have several areas in the budget where we have to make investments for next year, primarily in the area of special education, and I'll lay those out for you. We also have an area of mathematics. That's one of our strategic plan areas that we're focusing on that we have to make some investments in. So I've had to move some money around the budget to be able to do that. As we look at this year's budget, again, just at the bottom of the slide, as this has been consistently happening, all of our salaries have been increased in accordance with the collective bargaining agreements. Any of our individual employment agreements that we have been included. We've accounted for all of our step and lane increases that we know of. And again, we're fortunate that we actually have contracts in place that we've been able to fall back on. And for budgeting purposes, we've been doing fairly well with this. We budget Master's Step 3, which is currently $71,000, as the vacant line for a staff member. So we know we have, I believe it's 9 staff members who are retiring this year. They obviously are at a higher step. And we need to figure out budgeting-wise, because we don't know who we're going to hire yet, what we're going to budget at. So we've been budgeting Step 3, and as an average, that's typically worked out fairly well. We'll have some that come in higher than that. We'll have some potentially that come in, right out of school and might be less than that. But that's what we've used to do our budget. The first area that I've increased in the budget next year, and I've included a line item for, is the continued expansion of the language-based program at our middle school level. So 2 years ago, and this was really the direct result of a need for some students who were presenting with some really needs for some specialized reading and special education instruction so that they can really fully access the curriculum. The model has honestly gone over very well. It started at Parker. Parker was going to be the school that housed the program. It's a teacher and a para that fully support a particular cadre of students through their school day. Last year, we added it to 6th grade because obviously the kids go from 5 to 6. Well, now the kids are going to 6th to 7th. So we have the separate middle schools at this point, bless you, and we need to add a language-based teacher at McCarthy, because McCarthy is now where 7th grade is. So we have included funding in the budget to be able to do that. The second program that we need to expand on is at Parker Middle School as well. This is another special ed program. We're having a number of students, and this is going to be a theme that you're going to see. A number of our students on the autism spectrum are now moving from elementary school up to middle school. We didn't actually we had one fifth grade student this, actually a 6th grade student this year, who would have been in a program at Parker, but they would have been by themselves. And their cohort of students was all moving on to McCarthy, and they had all been together. So in working with the family, we actually had that student go up to 7th grade because it's a self-contained program anyway, and it worked out very well for that student. But we actually now have a number of students who are coming up from Harrington and Byham, 2 elementary ASD programs, as traditional 5th graders. And we don't have a program for them at Parker because we didn't have one this year. So we need to now grow that ASD program to 5th and 6th grade at Parker. And that's going to require us to hire a special education teacher and then a BCBA. There'll be several paras that are with the kids, but the BCBA that provides the program support. Historically, a lot of this has been contracted, based on need. But we have, again, been very successful. This past year, the Harrington program has gone very, very well. And that was the program we added on 2 classrooms. You'll see a little bit later, we actually have another 8 or 9 kids coming up from CHIPS next year in the CSA program that are going to need a program. So we need to expand on that one. But what this is going to provide us with is an ASD program at Parker for grades 5 and 6 for next year. So that has been included in the budget.
There's already one at McCarthy, right?
Yeah, the one in McCarthy, we contract, it's there, we contract through NEC for that one. And we had the discussion about should we continue with the NEC contract, should we do it in-house? In the end, we ended up deciding we're gonna try to build our own program in-house. And for this group coming up as fifth graders, it's a lot easier because they're all the same grade level. And again, we've been very fortunate with the staffing, particularly what we witnessed at Harrington. I'd much rather grow our own program if we can, and then use NEC as a consulting partner to help, provide some of the PD and support for the program.
The program will grow with those.
Well, it's going to stay 5 and 6 at Parker.
Yeah.
As of right now, we contract for the program at McCarthy and high school. If the contract is going well and the kids are well-serviced, I likely would not recommend pulling it. This is just an opportunity where there is no program at Parker to kind of build our own and follow the model that we've seen be successful at Harrington and Byam. At Harrington, again, so within this budget, you also have an additional ASD teacher for, again, what I mentioned, the kids coming up from CHIPS. So the kids that we already have are already in the program. We have 2 classrooms at Harrington now. We're going to have to add a third for these 8 or 9 students that are coming up from CHIPS. They are being serviced now at CHIPS. They're coming up to Harrington, and we need to make sure that they're well supported at that school. So within the budget, you will see an additional ASD position at Harrington. That's a program-specific position that we're going to need to fill to be in compliance with the number of kids that we have in that program.
So kids coming out of CHIPS, they either go to Byam or Harrington, so they don't necessarily go to their district school if that district school doesn't have that.
They don't necessarily,
Yeah.
but Amy always looks at the addresses of the kids to see if they're aligned to what would be their neighborhood school. And it works out for this particular group, because again, based on address and also where they've been programmatically together, to have them go together to Harrington. We also have the space issue at Byam. Harrington has a little bit more space now if we have to add a classroom. We honestly, Byam is maxed out. They've got 5 sections at every grade level. They don't have extra capacity over there.
And it's not that none of the kids from CHIPS go to South Row or Center, it's just that they have different K-1 special
Correct. So
ed
these would be
programs. They're not the ASD program.
kids specifically in the ASD.
Yeah.
Right, no, that's,
In case people are listening and they get confused
Yeah,
about that, yeah.
Right, no, there are other kids from CHIPS that go to the other
Right,
4
right,
schools.
right.
These are kids specific to the
Yeah.
ASD program.
Are we seeing that type of need increase
Dramatically,
dramatically?
yeah, and it's honestly based on numbers.
And the state does determine, how many students to staff you can have, so, in order to stay in compliance, I would imagine that's why we're adding these positions, so.
Right.
We have no choice.
We have no choice. right?
No,
It's a good choice to make.
It is a good choice to make.
Right.
Because you have no choice, doesn't mean it's a bad.
no, I'm very happy to be making this, and again, we've done very well building the programs. These are things that we don't have a choice over. Our choice is either to have the program in the district and do it well, like we are, or these individuals would be going to out-of-district placements, which are far more expensive, and honestly, I think less serve the kids than if we're able to serve them best in our own district. So we need to fully support these, these classrooms and these additions. The kids are there. It's not like they're question marks. They've been educated. And it's not like we don't have another group coming in behind CHIPS. Last year, one of the things that we did, opening the 2 classrooms at Harrington, we actually, because the numbers were a little lower at that time, one of the teachers from CHIPS moved up to Harrington, and then we just had to hire 1 teacher. But we already have the enrollment to CHIPS where we know we don't have an extra teacher to float up with the kids. We have to actually just hire for this particular program.
It's so worthwhile to get these kids in the programs while they're so young, because in the absence of them, sometimes you try to put them into the other special ed programs that aren't really meeting their needs as well. And then you've got these years where things aren't going so well. So I think it's really important to do it right away.
Right.
Right, and I think, the student has needs that are greater than we can provide services for, then we would have to look at an out-of-district placement. There's a lot of good out-of-district placements around. But they are costly. And for me, the big drawback has always been, they don't get to stay in their community.
Yeah, that's the main thing, right?
They don't get to become members of, the Chelmsford Public School community. And I think that's really important, not only to the students, but to the families as well.
Teachers too.
Yep.
They build relationships with those.
Absolutely. But it's nice, I think, for when the parents have, connections, right in their community for support and, opportunities for their kids, so.
To that end, also, from a compliance standpoint, and I will have a report for you at the next meeting, because we are just seeing general special ed numbers increasing, not only from the ASD program, but just general service kids who are requiring extra, say, reading support or math support or speech services or whatnot. We had the NESDEC group that does the regular enrollment projection for us, also has a special ed division, and they've done a little analysis on us back 4 years, just taking a look at number of students on IEPs, service levels and things like that, and you'll see a pretty significant increase over the past 2 years. I do think some of it has to do with post-pandemic, kind of coming out, a lot more kids being referred for services, and earlier on, which again, to Sue's point, I think is good. We'd much rather catch a kid early on and get them the services they need, but our service numbers are going up. So with two elementary schools at Harrington and South Row, and then at the high school as well, we haven't added any special education staff at the high school for quite some time. Just to make ratios work as far as service grids and delivery, we have to add 3 special education teachers at those schools. And again, this is something that we haven't traditionally done, but just based on the number of IEPs and the service grids calling for service, we need extra special educators at those 3 schools. So the budget incorporates that. Also working with Linda and Kelly Rogers, our L coordinator, our L number of students, particularly at the elementary school level, are increasing. So we need to add an L teacher to be able to be in compliance and to work with those students. So how it'll all pan out, or if it will be, day 2 a week in this school, day 2 in the other week, we have to kind of see where the kids end up enrolling. But we do need to add an L teacher to be in compliance at the elementary level. So all of those positions have really been compliance-based. The next recommendation that's been incorporated into the budget is specific to McCarthy Middle School. So and I'm sure you've heard of the program at the high school that's been very successful. We call it the STEP program. We have a number of students in the district who end up being referred to like outside hospitalizations or crisis for different mental health or health-related services that have a very difficult time reintegrating to the high school when they come back, both academically and socially, trying to re-engage. So some years back, the high school created a STEP program. So it was kind of an in-between type classroom with a counselor, and ultimately we added a teacher because the kids needed additional academic supports. And that serves as someone to be the liaison between the home and the family, the hospital, coordinating services. It's a pretty big clinical piece. Again, it got to the point where we actually had to add a teacher as well, because oftentimes the kids needed services when they were coming back in the classroom. They couldn't go out into the regular school day for the whole day. They had to have a smaller learning environment to be able to reacclimate. We're starting to see the numbers, particularly at the 7th and 8th grade level. We saw it at both schools last year, but because they happened to be in the same building this year, just the number of 7th and 8th grade students that are being outplaced in hospitalizations, referred out for crisis calls and crisis intervention that's required, has increased to the point where we have to put some additional supports in for those students at McCarthy. So Shannon Bischoff and Jeff Parks, the principal, have been looking at that, trying to model the program at McCarthy Middle School similar to the high school program. So the first phase of that would be adding a STEP counselor. That's what we had done at the high school. And this would be a very hands-on individual to, again, do all that case management coordination with this number of students as they're being outplaced, coming back to the school, help reintegrate. That recommendation in here as well. I don't think this is something either that, excuse me, I feel great, I'm just losing my voice, I don't know why. I also view this as something that is a have to, because we have struggling students that I think we have to best support, because this impacts not only them and their families and their schooling, but it impacts all the other kids and staff that are in the regular ed classes as they come back as well. So to me, this isn't a want, it's a need. And all of these things that we've presented thus far have really been compliance-driven and need-driven based on what we're seeing in the classrooms with the students.
So on this one too, I think that I think it's also important to mention that, I think in the past, you've had outside supports available for students, and it just isn't there now. There just are not, the kids are on waiting lists forever for, services through counseling and whatnot. So I think there is more responsibility on the schools to kind of support them, until they can get picked up by a therapist or a counselor outside of school. I know, we have students waiting on lists for months sometimes.
I was gonna say that therapy for, like, school-age children is actually really difficult to get right now.
Horrible.
Waiting lists everywhere.
Horrible.
So whatever education, not education, support we get in the schools is definitely a bonus.
Yeah, otherwise they're just not gonna, they don't have that outside support to be able to bring it to the schools, so.
Again, and for our budget meeting, just in case people have questions, like I will ask, like say Amy and Shannon, any of the people who are around these to come and be able to talk to any of these issues you may have questions on. But, when the recommendation came and we looked at the data, it really necessitated the recommendation, so. So that's here before you this evening as well, and that's included in the budget. The last, kind of position ad relates to elementary level mathematics. And this is really, again, tied specifically to the strategic plan, the focus area of trying to improve and increase our mathematics performance, starting at the very lowest levels of the district in elementary, ultimately working up to middle and high school. But the recommendation is to pilot a kind of a coaching model at the elementary level with 2 full-time mathematics specialist teachers. I do not envision these folks, and this is something we're still working through, being like direct service providers to the students, but doing, again, more of being the experts in the curriculum, the new curriculum we have that we're rolling out, going in, working with our teachers to help do model lessons, to coach the teachers. It's a non-evaluative role, so it's really a support role for the teachers. Our teachers are excellent. I mean, I want to.
We've had one person doing this kind of thing for a long time.
A little bit. So we have a retired individual who kind of contracts to do a little bit of work at the elementary level, but we have to make a bigger investment if we're going to really see
It's expanding
progress.
that kind of role.
Kind of expanding it, yeah, having it be a little bit more like full-time focus to the schools. We obviously have a lot of data, even when it comes to like the iReady assessments that we're doing, helping the teachers and the teams kind of break down that data to figure out exactly what they, could be doing, should be doing a little differently. And again, this is nothing, our teachers are excellent teachers. A lot of our elementary teachers really have a specialty area in literacy, right? Which is not bad, that's just what you typically see. I think we really need to get a few folks that are really math specialists in there to be working with them, just to make them, very comfortable with the new curriculum so that they feel supported, so that they're in the classrooms kind of working hand in hand with them. I think this would really help us out a lot. We have to do something to kind of jumpstart this at the elementary level, because when you do get to the middle school level and the high school level, people are more content specific, and you actually have, math teachers and licensed teachers and whatnot. This is something that I think is going to really help us at that elementary level if we want to see our math scores improve. So that's included in there. Again, I see this being a split position. A couple of years back, when we added the assistant principals at the elementary level, the first year out of the gate, we didn't have funding to do 4. We had to do 2, and we had to do a split. I think that actually worked well for us, because even that first year that we implemented, we kind of figured out, we like this piece of it. We like this to be a little bit different. I think there's also a different level of dependence when you don't have someone full-time in a building, because they're sharing space a little bit, that we can kind of really work through all the logistics of these positions in year 1. And then I'll foreshadow for you, a year from now or 2 years from now, I'd love to, potentially add others at the other schools so they could have a full-time. But we'll have to see how this all plays out. But I've been able to incorporate that into the budget recommendation as well.
What would these people be, certified math? What do you envision the person you would hire for this position?
That's part of our dilemma.
Okay.
So there is really not a mathematics certification at the elementary level.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
A lot of districts, instead of calling them, like you have like a literacy specialist that would have a literacy background or a literacy cert, we're going to have to look for people that actually have a mathematics content. You never know if you might actually have, say, math certified people at the secondary level, so it might be like middle school type person that also had elementary experience. We're in the process of gathering like job descriptions from other districts just to see how they're actually doing it. It's key that they have an elementary kind of mindset and, understanding developmentally where the kids are at. they're gonna have to have math exposure, they're gonna have to have a math background, and they're gonna have to be good people
We need a
persons.
unicorn.
Two.
Two unicorns.
We need two.
What about certification? I mean, how does that work? I mean, so if it say it's a middle school math, somebody's certified in middle school math, can they?
I'll be happy, let me bring it back to you, because I'll
Okay.
show you like what the job description
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
like. They're gonna have to be a licensed teacher, right? So that's kind of the key, but we're gonna have to figure out how much we wanna weigh on just the general elementary license, how much we wanna have like the math license at, say, the secondary level, even like middle school,
Elementary too.
yeah.
What a void in teacher education prep that actually is.
It
And there's
really
been
is.
reading specialist teachers for decades, and we just don't have it.
Again, I just
It's
think
not a
by,
Chelmsford problem, it's
there are
a,
a lot of, the most, even people in my family, you know, who are more elementary people, just tend to be more literacy people, and they typically have kind of gone into it that way.
but it's a certification also very specific for reading.
You don't find a lot of people with it,
But, no, but for math, it
correct?
doesn't even exist, does it?
Well, I think they're starting,
Oh, is it?
Specific,
Okay.
Oh, there is, okay, I didn't
You
know
don't
that.
find a lot of people that
right, but there's
that
no
have it.
math special, there's a reading certification, right? So reading specialist certification, there's no math specialist certification.
Right, that's
So
what
it has
I'm
to be
talking about.
somebody that has a math background, math certification 5 through 8,
Yeah.
or 1 through 6. So it is a little much different than,
It doesn't exist yet, but it,
correct, there's no
Good.
program for math
We're inventing
specialists.
it.
yeah,
You can get a degree, a higher ed degree in reading specialist.
yes.
I think STEM is coming along too as a specialist type of thing, certification. I think Merrimack was talking about this at a meeting.
Yeah, a lot of them
that I went to.
are adding STEM, yeah.
Yeah. Do you foresee, this brings up something else that I've been thinking about is the needs of our teachers as we go forward, of all our teachers. And our staff, 9 retirements are coming up. Younger teachers, which is not bad, it's all good, okay? But more and more, I know in industry, a lot of companies are talking about this. They now have specialists, training specialists for just particular positions, even though the individual may have been doing the position for 1 or 2 years, they still have to go through very extensive training when they come in order to really then be able to perform at the level that they need to. Is this something that we foresee coming along in teaching?
Well, I
Where we
think
may have
some
to have
districts already
general
have
training
some
Some do,
specialists,
yeah.
you know.
Again, I envision that these people, and this is early in the development stage, right? They'll be the people that we invest a lot of extra time in to go out and get all the PD, to do all the trainings, to become the expert in the product, so that we actually have people in district that do that, and we're not relying on the company to send their people out to work with us. And then when it comes to kind of infiltrating and working in the schools to bring the curriculum in, to bring the supports in, like, they'll be that person. So I'm also hoping it's gonna, again, not that there'll be less PD, but this can be more directed, kind of PG and coaching with our staff,
At a grade level team meeting,
grade
for
level team
instance, it just
meetings, you know,
happens.
after school, if it is our own PD, it could be our own people delivering the PD. You know, in Lowell, and like we have the instructional specialist type model where they would be like your content experts going in to really kind of coach and work with the teachers to bring this in. So I'd like to start to develop those in-house experts in the field.
Yeah, I would think that that's gonna be coming along more and more.
Right.
Yeah, and additionally, there's some districts who will also provide, in addition to the mentoring program, PD for new teachers, you know, after school, in order to make sure that they have the skills that they need.
Yeah, because otherwise I think going forward, we may not be able to truly support the needs that a teacher coming into the system will have. Yeah.
I agree. The last slide, these aren't changes, but I just want to highlight them for you so you know I didn't forget about them. But every year, we do take a look at our, like, sub rates and things like that, just to make sure we're competitive, because we want to make sure we have, you know, the best fill rates we can. And honestly, beside one of our neighboring urban communities, we have really the highest sub rates that are there.
Work in the big packed urban.
I know, it's tough. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing, because I know they're funding a lot of this stuff with ESSER money, so I don't know when that goes away, if there'll be a reset. But our rates are actually very highly competitive. We're like right behind them rates, so I don't see a need to change our day-to-day sub rates or any of that for next year. If I ever did, I would bring it to you. But I think we're in really good shape on that front. It's just the job market, trying to kind of get people back to work.
Yeah.
And then lastly, again, the budget has, and it continues to include funding. It's been successful for us, the rollout of the whole 101 initiative. So again, all incoming fifth grade students to Parker and all incoming ninth grade students to the high school will get their new laptop and keep for 4 years and move on, so.
And is Chromebook still the way to go in all the districts?
Yeah, we're doing Chrome.
Okay.
It's very easy to troubleshoot. It's very easy to manage. The kids are excellent with them now.
It's still the way to
So
go.
it's the way to go, yeah.
Is that funded through school choice still?
Yes, so it's in the budget, it's listed as a school choice offset. We haven't had to take it the last couple of years because we've had the one-time money. But technically, yes, it's an offset in the budget.
The one-time money's drying up though, anyway, so.
Well, over time, it's gonna go down, but no, we're still gonna, for our one-time spending this year, we're still gonna have a pretty good number, because
Yeah,
again,
I'm
we,
thinking ESSER money, yeah, okay.
oh, no, ESSER money's going away.
all right,
No,
that's
this is our own,
Our own one-time money, okay,
our
yeah.
own one-time
yeah,
money,
Gotcha.
not the ESSER money. So that is in there, and again, I just wanna, as you're going through the budget pages, you know, the way we've been able to do this, because this is some significant adds, again, these aren't kind of wants, these are things that we need to do based on compliance and service needs of our kids, our special ed kids and our L kids in particular. You know, the 3.2 million increase from the town manager is certainly bridging this gap to get us there. We're anticipating next year that we are going to get revenue coming in from Valley Collaborative. They're going to have excess funding that they're going to have to give back to districts. That was about $300,000 we're getting. We're going to lean a little bit heavier on our revolving funds as offsets to the budget. We're going to take a little bit more from transportation. We're going to take a little bit more from athletics. Those funds we've been building up over the years, and this is a necessary investment. We obviously want to balance the budget and fund it. I'm comfortable doing it with those three offsets. It's something that we can manage going forward, but honestly, I see these as necessary things for next year. So as you read through this and come up with questions, you know, happy to talk about it, and as we go page by page through the budget, the last week in February, hopefully have some good dialogue.
This is something that came up at a meeting that I attended about Title I. Now, and, you know, some of these supports and so on and reading, and we were getting funded based on, one of the basis for this is the number of people who apply for the lunch, the free lunch. But now it's free for everybody, so we're probably not getting as many applications filled out. What are the other parameters that we have to prove in order to get the funds for Title I? In other words, I just want to make sure that we're going to get our allotment of what, you know, we're entitled to.
Right. So,
We're still encouraging people to fill out, you know.
I know, but-
During lunch, but there's also SNAP benefits. There's a few parameters that allow us to.
Is Medicaid's type of
I don't think
applications?
it's automatic. All districts are dealing with this because you don't have people filling out the
Right.
free and reduced lunch forms anymore. I
Right.
don't ultimately know like what DESI is gonna use as the, like the new
Okay.
indicator. We're in the same ballpark as everyone else though. And, you know, we do encourage folks because you do qualify for additional things, even though everyone gets the free lunch. But if you, you know, needed to ride the bus, or, you know, participate in after-school athletics, if you do meet the threshold, you do qualify. So we still have families that are qualifying. As Linda indicated, I know Joanna knows, like the SNAP benefits that the state automatically approves, they automatically come over to us, so the kids get coded. But I know like our rate is lower than pre-COVID, but every district's rate is lower than pre-COVID. And when you're dividing that pot by everyone, in the end, I don't think it's gonna be a significant difference for us because our numbers aren't high, fortunately, because everyone else's numbers are low as well. So you're still dividing that same pot by the same number of districts. But we'll keep an eye on it.
All right, well, thank you very much. I did have a Chapter 70 question. So last year when we took a look at the formula, there were a lot of variables that had changed for us in terms of the, the calculations that allowed us to see an increase in our Chapter 70 funds. What changed?
I think from what we're told, the big thing that changed in the formula was the inflation rate
Okay.
being so low. The inflation rate was above 5% last year. I don't know exactly what it was. I think the Chapter 70 formula was capped at 4.5%, but the inflation rate that they used in the formula this year, I think, is around 1%. So as a district, we benefited from the inflation rate like all other districts did. I want to say when the governor's budget came out, DESE did a quick, the Mass Superintendent Group did a quick little analysis, and there were like over 200 districts that received just the minimum $30 aid. That there were a handful of districts, 20 or under, that really saw substantial increases or saw any kind of shift, like they didn't get funding last year and all of a sudden did this year. But there's a lot of disappointment statewide in the fact that, just the $30 per child is what's kind of kicking in at this point. What it does is it shifts the burden to the town, or it shifts the burden to the cities.
I was just gonna say, I had this discussion with Marie and one of the state senators the other day, where, if you're gonna increase housing and keep pushing people to go near the train stations, there has to be some kind of increase that goes in step with all of this growth and in funding of the schools and Chapter 70 and it's kind of ludicrous, by the way, that only 20 towns, out of the whole state, getting more. And we're growing, we're 80 students. I don't know, Chapter 70 has been broken since we started, for us anyway.
Well, I think when they, and again, I'm not the expert on this, but when they passed that Student Opportunity Act, which I believe still has 2 more years to be fully impacted,
Yeah.
it was primarily targeted towards helping the urban kind of gateway cities.
Yeah.
And they have benefited from it.
Which is good.
Which is good, I'm happy for them, but it's not helping out the suburban, smaller communities.
And then what about the monies that were supposed to be allocated for education? Some of the
Extra millionaire tax money.
yep, and other things too.
Done with that.
Okay. just
Yeah,
wondering.
I don't have an answer for that. I mean, it's all supposedly wrapped into this Student Opportunity Act. We're not.
We have to have another conversation with our state.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm not trying to complain, but even
yeah.
some of
No,
them,
you can
I
complain.
know, but
But it's
even
very frustrating. It's just
It's
frustrating.
frustrating.
I am too.
I even thanked the governor's staff when they came to the school and was like, thank you for putting
Yeah.
that high number in the budget, and then they slapped me in the face.
But I think when we talked to, oh gosh, his name escapes me, the gentleman who's come out before and talked
Roger
to-
Hatch.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I
like
mean,
Roger.
he was even optimistic that this was not like a one-time thing
I know.
last year, so. This
Crazy.
is just, disappointing, so.
Suburban towns, I imagine, are growing faster than urban at this point. I'm sure the studies for it, but they're cramming people on the the MBTA, which is good. I think town growth is good, and I think bringing people in are good, but you have to fix the other things in step at the same time, because they grow in parallel.
All right, well, thank you.
So what I would recommend, give it a read. I think, we're actually accomplishing a lot with the budget, making these recommendations. I think they're, in my opinion, they're necessities. But I'd like you to read through them, come up with your notes. If you want me to do any research ahead of time, please send it along. And if not, when we come back for the budget hearing, again, we'll send notices to all the town meeting reps, and we always invite them to come. But we'll go page by page through the budget and answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
We'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you, Town Manager Cohen, for your support. It's greatly appreciated, for sure. And thank you for working with Dr. Lang, to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our students and families. All right, thank you.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda this evening. I should call the Dennis King report, because I knew he was going to ask for this. This is the, no, it's just a memo on the turf fields, the debt payment schedule. Joanna put a little memo together. This is the last year of the, so in '24 is the last year that we're paying down the principal and interest on the turf fields. So we're happy that that's happening. You may see a one-time recommendation to pay for that out of one-time spending, again, depending what the numbers look like, just to keep that reserve fund at a good level. And we're going to have to start planning, I don't think it's imminent, but we're going to have to start planning for the possible replacement in the years to come. And so that's still on the horizon. The fields we have are excellent. They've been very well maintained. The contract we have with the provider has definitely given them life. The fact that they didn't get use over COVID certainly extended the life a little bit. But at some point in the somewhat near future, we're going to have to put new turf down. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we're all happy that the bond and interest payments at least being paid up this year.
So all the rental fees now just go into the account?
Yeah, they've been going into the account
Right,
all along,
right.
but we just haven't had to tap it.
Right.
So we're just kind of letting it build up because eventually that might be a good source to be able to contribute towards a portion, I don't know if at all, but at least a portion of the fields. And I think we've proven over the track record that, we will, one way or the other, whether it's through that or the one-time, make the bond and interest payments. So hopefully, if we do need more money going forward to replace them, the town would be understanding of that, and we would have had a good track record paying. And the last, tonight, just two field trip requests for you. One was in the packet if you looked at it earlier, so I just printed and I put it on your desk. We had a last-minute request come in for the wrestling team in case we have wrestlers that make the New Englands. So I just have those two field trips that I would request your approval. First one, again, is if we do have any varsity wrestlers that make the New England Wrestling Tournament, it's March 1st and 2nd in Providence, Rhode Island. And then the second trip is if we have qualifying DECA students, that should say DECA, not DESI, DECA students going to the Mass State Conference, which is March 7th to 9th in Boston. So I recommend approval of both trips.
Do them separately, please.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the Chelmsford High School wrestling team trip to Providence, Rhode Island from March 1st to March 2nd, 2024.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0 in favor.
Yep. I make a motion to approve the Chelmsford High School DECA Club field trip to Boston from March 7th to March 9th, 2024.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? 5-0 in favor. And that's it for you.
That's it for me.
Anybody have any liaison reports?
Say Byams tomorrow.
Okay,
Byams tomorrow.
all right. Any new action items or items?
I did have one CPAC, actually.
I'm sorry, yes.
CPAC had their yearly Parents' Rights Workshop last week, and it was actually very well attended, put on by the Federation for Children with Special Needs.
You do a nice job.
Yeah, they had 21 attendees, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
They plan to do another workshop later in the spring on the new IVP.
Oh, yes.
Try to implement that in the
Yes.
fall. So I just want to make parents aware of what that's going to look like. And then they're going to also try to have a couple of meetings and see if they can recruit some more people to join them.
Great,
And
thank you.
then tomorrow night is Alumni Association.
All right, anybody else? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fine.
All right, any new action items? So I do have one. So we need to meet with the select board regarding the Neshoba Technical High School School Committee. We have to have somebody appointed. So the recommended dates are the 11th of March and the 25th of March, but the 25th is preferred by the town moderator.
I'll just say 25th.
25th, okay. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Monday.
March 25th?
Yeah, it was like a 6 o'clock meeting,
Yes.
I think.
Is that okay with you, Maria?
Yes.
All right, then I will let Mr. Garrity know.
What do you say, the 11th?
25th.
25th.
Is there anything else anybody would like added to any upcoming agendas? So we have some pretty full agendas coming up for the next
do.
few meetings. Okay.
Part of the year.
All right, and do we have any public input for this evening? Anybody register?
We don't.
Okay. Any emails that need to be read into the record? No? Okay, then with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0 in favor. Thank you, everybody.